Hello and welcome, connoisseurs of fine common cardboard, to today's live stream. My name's Papa Popper Ryan, and here today with a new Let's Build from Thunder Junction, the set soon to come out here, the next set. We're going to be talking about Golgari today. We've got a very exciting commander that we're going to be looking at building for cPDH Competitive Pauper Commander, and it's great to have everybody in today. We're going to get things started off here. If everybody just let me know that the audio is coming through clean and clear, and then we're going to get things started. So I've left a little link for those who are watching it live here. If you want to listen to music along with me, we're currently working on systems so that there can be maybe a little bit of live ambient stuff in the background. But as it stands right now, we'll just post the link and let you enjoy that if you want to. But looks like audio does seem to be coming through clear, so we're going to get things started here. Today we're going to be talking about Honest Rutstein. Honest Rutstein is a 3-mana Golgari commander. It's a legendary human warlock, and it's a 3/2. So we always like to start these videos by taking a look at all the characteristics of the card so we can really understand why it is somebody might want to pick this commander for cPDH. Now, the thing that you're going to see here at the top is that when Honest Rutstein enters the battlefield, you're going to return target creature from your graveyard to your hand. And this is actually not what we're going to be focusing on today, but the other ability is creatures you cast cost 1 less to cast. And this is an incredibly powerful ability, particularly in Golgari, where we have strong incentive to be playing lots and lots of creatures. And today what we're going to be focusing on is the fact that Honest Rutstein is 3 mana and that Honest Rutstein discounts our creatures. So the concept here is that we want to get Rutstein out as soon as possible, and then we're going to start discounting our creatures instead of focusing on the value portion of it, which is that we're returning a creature from our graveyard to our hand. This will occur when Rutstein dies on accident. There are ways that we can, just replay him and get a creature back, and we will get value from it. And that's kind of just the cherry on top. But this focus with this ramping on 1, with a Llanowar Elf, a Utopia Sprawl, a Wild Growth, any 1-mana ramp spell into a turn 2 Honest Rutstein is going to mean that on turn 3, we can immediately start to deploy a lot of threats. And just as a little bit of context, something I wanted to mention at the beginning of this is that when Honest Rutstein was put out, I wasn't really excited about it, to be quite honest. I didn't really know exactly why I wanted to play this over just something else that might be available to us. And let me just I'm going to tighten up our Canva here. There we go. So we get a little better view of everything. But why would we want to play this? And so I threw a deck together. I added basically every ETB, LTB, 2-mana creature that just did something when it came in into the deck and just thought, let's just see what happens, right? And I put in like 100 cards, 34 creatures. I didn't put any removal in it, just a bunch of stuff, okay? And I was kind of blown away. And it's the reason why this live stream is happening now is because my expectations were greatly exceeded. And so let's talk about what we can do with Honest Rutstein and some of the creatures that we can play in the deck. And then after we move through this, we'll go on and we'll actually look at the part of the list that I've come together with. And we'll basically round it out and take it to 100 cards. So what are we playing with Honest Rutstein in Golgari? And there's a lot of different things, but the first thing that came to mind was just playing a 1-mana Elvish Visionary or a 1-mana Dusk Legion Zealot is going to provide us just a lot of acceleration, a lot of velocity. It's giving us a lot of value. Like Dusk Legion Zealot and Elvish Visionary are rather mid in a lot of ways in many decks. They're not just generally playable. You need to be doing something with the body. And if that's buffing the body up, that's good. If it's eating the body for some sort of a plunder effect or a sacrifice, that can be good. But a lot of times, like, we want to get more than 1 card off of our card when it's a value-based thing. And the way you can do that is by using the body to do other things. So you're basically kind of the synergy between having bodies that draw you cards and then sacrificing them to do other things makes them worth it when you do it, that kind of a thing. And in this deck, because we're playing them for 1 mana, our velocity can be quite ridiculous. We can play out an Elvish Visionary into a Dusk Legion Zealot, into a Village Rites, into holding up like a 2-mana removal spell as early as turn 3, right? Like we can have 5 mana on turn 3 and just like vomit out all these different things that are keeping our velocity very high, and they're going to build into bigger and better things over time. And that velocity is something I'm really interested in because cPDH right now, it's not that things have continued to get any faster. In fact, I think we've kind of seen the format plateau. It may creep forward a little bit. Maybe we'll get to like an 8 to an 8.5 turn average format, but right now it's about turn 9. And it went down pretty steeply for a long time, but now we're kind of at that plateau where it seems like things have really leveled out at about a 9-turn format. But more importantly, people are trying to present wins earlier on in the game, and being able to get a board presence, start drawing cards, moving through our deck, removing creatures, attacking earlier is definitely nice. It's definitely favorable, and it in some ways informs what we want to be playing in cPDH. Is that we want to be making game actions that impact the board very, very quickly. So we have cards like that. We have cards like Ixali's Diviner and Seeker's Squire, which are both going to just give us like a cheap body that's going to either, filter through a card, putting something into the graveyard, or it's going to give us a land. And if it, puts something into the graveyard, then we get somewhat of a body. It's still expendable, but we can block with it, we can attack with it. There are other cards like the Tutor, right, that are also card advantage. And note that I'm not showing all of the cards that fit into each one of these categories because there are a lot of them. Like, if you go fully hog wild on this, easy to have like 200 cards in your deck lined up that, are interacting with Honest Rutstein. But Wireword Herald as a 1-mana card in a deck full of ways to sacrifice things that finds an elf card, notably elf card means anything with Changeling as well. Fierce Empath being essentially like a 2-mana tutor for, it could even be in a pinch like a Troll of Khazad-dûm or a Generascent so we can get a land. But this is also going to get some like very big stuff like maybe Lotleth Troll or maybe a Gurmag Angler. There's a lot of things we can get for 6 mana that when we're moving through our deck very quickly and we're ramping and we're producing all these creatures, this is very good. So we've got tutors, we've got ramp. There's even more ramp though. And these creatures are actually some of my favorite. I don't know why I like them so much, and I don't even know to like what degree they're very premium, but they feel really good. When you go, like Honest Rutstein onto turn 3, 1-mana Viridian Emissary, Village Rites that thing, ramp, draw into another land, play that land, like you go so fast through your deck. And these cards are basically the same thing as the Elvish Visionary and the Dusk Legion Zealot, except we're guaranteeing a land and we're ramping. We're actually getting further ahead. We're producing more velocity. So we're producing velocity with all these extra bodies, but we're also producing velocity with ramping, which might seem funny. Like, why would we want to ramp in a deck that, that has like a lot of little stuff? And that's because it's about action economy. We're increasing our action economy, and then later on, as we start to draw into some of our bigger stuff, we can very easily play very large creatures with our ramp and with the discount that Honest Rutstein provides us. There's other forms of ramp too that are super novel, like Wood Elves. And Wood Elves is really interesting because it's actually a 1-mana play. You go 1 mana, 2 mana for Wood Elves. It puts a forest card into play untapped, so there's another mana, so it's getting itself that discount. While being sort of fodder, right? All of these things, a lot of these things are kind of, they're also fodder. Whereas Jewel Thief may be a little bit different because we can forge this up with the initiative, but it's also just a 3/3 Vigilant Trampler that's creating a treasure token for 2 mana, which is really a great rate in a deck like this. Notably, Forest Elves or Wood Elves here can also put in duels into play. So, yeah. The other things we have are cards like Priest of Titania and Werebear. It goes a lot deeper than that. We have like Sakura Tribe Elder as well. But and then there's stuff like Leafkin Druid, which makes more than 1 mana. That's also notable. But a 1-mana Priest of Titania is a lot of velocity. Like, if we've got a 1-mana ramp creature, do a turn 2 Rutstein and do a turn 3 like, Priest of Titania into Viridian Emissary, into Village Rites, into like a, a 1-mana Gurmag Angler. There's like a lot of different things you could do. Gurmag Angler, you'd have to have some sort of mill, so you'd have to go like Satyr Wayfinder into Gurmag Angler. But that's a lot of velocity because that turn 4 is going to be ludicrous. We're going to have so much mana. We're going to have so much to do with it. In my playtesting, I've done probably like 40 hands with this deck now. In just weird forms, like maybe like 116 cards in the deck and then like a couple extra lands to accommodate for that. And the amount of churning we do is crazy. And cards like this really help with that. Werebear in particular is really exciting because we do get Threshold very, very quickly. We fill the graveyard either by sacrificing things with self-mill effects like Explore or Self-Mill like Satyr Wayfinder, or even something like the new Prowler, the new Blanchwood Prowler, that kind of stuff. And so this card is a 1 mana dork on turn 3, of course, that turns into a 4/4 later on, which is great. The other thing we have, and this is where start getting deeper and deeper into the sauce here and why it's so exciting, but we get like a 1 mana Priest of the Haunted Edge. And this is a card that is on so many people's like pet card list, and I would say it's on mine. It's a tragic card. Its sorcery speed activation is such a bummer on this card, and it was just such an unnecessary kneecap for it. But it's still, like, in this deck, it becomes playable. In other decks, I don't know that it is. Maybe it's just a reusable thing. It's very slow. But in this deck, if we can run this out with a whole bunch of other stuff, like turn 1 Llanowar Elves, turn 2 Rutstein, turn 3, Viridian Emissary into Priest of Haunted Edge, into Fleshbag Marauder, sacking the Viridian Emissary, putting a land into play, holding up Defile or something like that, then it starts to make a lot more sense why the Priest of the Haunted Edge would work. Also, we have quite a bit of ramp in the deck, and so we're going to have lots of lands in play, and I think this is actually worth it then. But Fleshbag Marauder is another piece of interesting tech that we can play, because this deck just says, you're in Golgari, play a lot of creatures, and maybe what we can do is, instead of playing more targeted removal, we can lean more on like Edicts and things like that. And Fleshbag Marauder is just a great card. We've also got cards like Abyssal Gatekeeper. We've got Innocent Blood works great in this deck. Really, really good in this deck. We have, your Demon's Disciple, Slum Reaper, even cards like that I usually don't recommend, like Rottide Gargantua, are pretty good here, because you're getting like a 4 mana 5/4 if you just want a creature, or you can get an Edict attached to it, and that Edict is going to sacrifice something that we genuinely want to sacrifice, even if it gets killed, which is cool. There's more, though. Bayou-Groff and Mockrit Behemoth are such cool cards, right? Big flavor wins here. Mockrit Behemoth is absolutely enormous. Like 5 mana, 7/6 menace in this format. It's tangling with the biggest creatures there are. And the problem is that both of these cards require that we have things in play that we can sacrifice. And what I found in most Golgari decks is that I'm not able to put enough stuff in there that actually just wants to die or is okay dying to justify what we're putting in our deck. And so they're just not as consistent as I want them to be. In this deck, almost everything is okay to sacrifice, because it cost us 1 less mana and it replaced itself in some way. So Bayou-Groff is a 1 mana 5/4 that's going to trigger a sacrifice ability or trigger a death ability or use something that already provided an ETB. It's a 1 mana 5/4, right? Mockrit Behemoth is going to be 4 mana 7/6, which is just big. Both of them, just huge. This one having Menace is a massive deal. But it goes deeper than that, because we're churning through our deck, because we're sacrificing things and we're milling cards into our graveyard occasionally. Cards like Gurmbag Angler and Hooting Mandrills are just good beaters. They're just strong threats. Because one of the things I realized when I was starting to assemble the cards and everything was that the first build of it just had like a bunch of trash creatures that just like drew cards or, did things. And then I thought, how am I actually winning the game? And there was some thoughts, maybe like You Meet in a Tavern, or, Gruesome Fate, that kind of stuff, maybe grinding value with the Initiative and the Monarch. And then I started to look into the threats, and there's a lot of reasons to like what we have available there. Hooting Mandrills and Gurmbag Angler are just the tip of the iceberg. We also get discounted initiative cards, which is busted. There are turn sequences where if you have 6 mana, actually you can play turn 3 initiative very easily, right? You can go 1 mana dork into turn 2 Rutstein, turn 3, slam that Vicious Battle Rager and get to work, start forging things up, get the pressure on. But there's other turn sequences like turn 5 where I've had like Vicious Battle Rager into Underdark Explorer, and you just churn through the initiative super quickly because these creatures are just really good. Like a 3 mana Vicious Battle Rager is so busted. 4 mana Avenging Hunter is like well above the curve. 4 mana Underdark Explorer also, above the curve as well. There's more though. What about a 4 mana Gary or a 6 mana Lotleth Giant? These are all things that we can do in here. Lotless Giant, we're going to see whether we actually like make the break for this. We have a lot of creatures in the deck. It's one of the highest creature densities of any decks I've ever made, I think, in cPDH, while also being interactive. And I think that's really an important caveat in here, because basically our creatures are all draw, similar to Rilsa, where you don't have like a ton of dedicated draw spells. You just have creatures that come with some repeat draw mechanic. It's kind of a blue, you know, like a Dimir farm deck. Whereas in this deck, the difference is that we have some draw spells, right? But we have a lot of creatures that are just drawing cards and like enabling those draw spells as well. So those are some examples. And then the final ones I wanted to mention too, turn 1, or turn 3, 1 mana Bloodseeker is great. Just casting a 1 mana Bloodseeker, that discount is much better than like a Llanowar Elf, because we're playing so many creatures into it. And if our opponents kill Rutstein, we just get something back. So I think that Rutstein is really interesting for that reason. The secondary ability that we talked about of, returning a creature from your graveyard to your hand makes it very unappealing to kill Rutstein, because we're just gonna he won't eat targeted removal. He'll die to sweepers. He might die to a counterspell, maybe, but we get to play these cards for the cheap. 4 mana Poison Belly Ogre. This one here might look a little weird. You might be sending why would you play this? Like TPI, Gut, Abdel. This stops Flicker decks. Any Flicker deck this stops unless they can get rid of it. And 5 mana has always been steep for this card. The reason we play it is because we're a black deck. Because it hits everybody, we can actually just gain through our own life loss. But it's a Stax piece, and in a deck like this, a 4 mana version of the Poison Belly Ogre is actually quite a bit more desirable than the 5 mana, which does not feel very good, but we do put it in the deck sometimes to punish those sorts of things. So with that, let's get on to the deck building here, and I'll respond to some comments and whatnot. Let's pull up the deck here and bring this thing over there. Bingo, cool. So we've got a Rosium smelling like a zoo up in here. Dow Shax, you did not arrive early. You arrived just on time. Buddy there, awesome. Good to see you too. Bulk Box Commander, and no worries that you're running late. You are just on time. So welcome everybody, and super stoked to have you here. Let's see who we got in here. We got 17 people. Holy smokes, 17 people to show up talking about cPDH. That is kind of ludicrous. Thank you everybody for joining us today. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the cards that we didn't talk about in the presentation. The first category of cards that we need to talk about is ramp, because I think that the ramp is really core to the strategy that I had in mind when I approached this the first time, which was turn 2 Rutstein by any means necessary, right? And yes, we're going to post the deck list in the chat. Thank you so much for asking. There we go. I always wait to post the deck list because I don't want people reading the deck list and then not showing up for the live stream. It's just a formality there. So let me drop this in the description as well. Bingo. But yes, 1 mana ramp is a big part of what we're doing here. And the 1 mana ramp is going to be Arbor Elf, Boreal Druid, Elves of Deep Shadow. We're going to have Elvish Mystic. Essence Warden is not ramped. Is Essence Warden listed here? No, it's not. But Finhorn Elves, Llanowar Elves, Utopia Sprawl, Wild Growth. And these are all really pretty important to our strategy. I am mulliganing for a hand that has one of these. You kind of want one of these and then some stuff. It's not super picky outside of that one creature that we want to have. And that's one of the things that basically, I never envisioned cutting any of those cards. I never envisioned cutting any of these 1 mana ramp things. And so yeah, the next section is going to be probably a place that we make some cuts from, because ultimately, getting to Rutstein is the most important thing. After that, ramping is a bit more incidental. It's just kind of happening along the way because there's really good things we can do with those lands. But we have cards like Leafkin Druid, which produce 2 or more, 2 mana if you have 4 or more creatures. We have Priest of Titania, which in a deck here with, what is it, how many elves do we have? 15 elves. 15 elves currently is probably going to make 2 mana in most games, I think, at least. Yeah, that's kind of what we're looking for. We have Primal Druid, of course, and the Viridian Emissary. And of course, Sakura Tribe Elder is really good. 1 mana, it's 1 mana ramp. It's just very, very, very good on a creature there. And then Werebear, Jewel Thief, Llanowar Visionary is great here too. It's doing double duty as like ramp, draw. You know, it's just great. And then Wood Elves. On to our draw spells, of course. You know, I love Plunder. Plunder mechanic in black has really revolutionized card advantage in black, and I think has made it significantly more competitive than it was before. You know, when you started diving deep into black draw spells, you got into a lot of like weird situations where you were casting 3 mana draw spells. And 3 mana draw spells, 3 mana draw twos are just mid. You know, they're not great. Now we're casting a lot of 2 mana and 1 mana draw spells. Not every Plunder deck can play Corrupted Conviction and Village Rites. This one definitely can, and being able to maximize that is great. Bulk Box says 4 to 5 pieces of consistent ramp would be ideal. Is that 4 to 5 being like in a game? I think the main, the main and most important thing is that we just have a 1 mana dork or some 1 mana ramp on turn 1. That's the more important thing. We're probably not going to get more of these cards, if I was to guess. You know, but so that is kind of unfortunate because we'd love to just like cut something like Leafkid Druid and, you know, like even Jewel Thief or Llanowar Visionary and just play like more 1 mana ramp, but that's what we've got. We could play Lotus Petal. Lotus Petal might actually be worth it in this deck. Lotus Petal often is not worth it, but I think in this deck it could be. We could look into that. But he says, what are the odds of hitting turn 1 ramp? Or are the odds of a turn 2 Rutstein? So in my playtesting, I'm able to find it with 3 mulligans pretty consistently, either on the first one or on the third. And because our card advantage is so ludicrous, we're fine. Like 25 draw spells, very efficient. You churn through the deck super, super quickly. So that's I would say pretty consistent. Yeah. And we've got Mr. Willis. Mr. Willis, we're just going to go with that. Mr. Willis. I may put some infinite creature-based combos with this commander out. Seems pretty fun. So there is a combo, and we're not going to be doing it today because I generally just, I'm not particularly confident in this combo in this deck because even though we have lots of ways to dig for it, we don't actually have very many tutors for it. And that is the Ashnod's Altar combo with Workshop Assistant and Mirror Retriever. The cool thing is that Honest Rutstein does turn that on. You discount, you know, with Mirror Retriever and with, you know, Foundry Assistant or Foundry Inspector. But the problem with these cards is that they also, like, they don't really do anything else for us. You know, like Mirror Retriever alone, like there's not that many artifacts here. We've got 2, right? The same thing with Workshop Assistant. So you're going to be like trying to assemble this thing. You don't have counter spells. So if you try to resolve your piece that's really important, and somebody counters it, then you've got Rutstein to maybe get it back, but Rutstein has to die first. You've got stuff like Cadaver Imp, which can pick it up. You've got cards like Urborg Repossession or, you know, Reclaim that can get an Ashnod's Altar back. But I'm not super high on the idea of trying to combo in Golgari, but it is the thing you can do, and Honest Rutstein is extraordinarily unique for the fact that you can actually combo in this deck if you wanted to. And, you know, maybe you just cut some of the extraneous like beaters and stuff to play that, go even deeper into draw, and then that would be an interesting thing to do. But yeah. And then what about the Recursion package? The Recursion package is interesting because the question is, what are we getting back? If we're just getting back like a Guildsworn Prowler, I don't super love that. If it's a Fleshbag Marauder, I'm a little happier. If it's a Bayou Groff or an Initiative creature or an Owlbear maybe, Vulturous Aven, definitely, Vicious Battle Rager, maybe an Annoyed Altasaur or a Lotleth Giant. I'm not sure in what circumstances those die. A Mockrit Behemoth, a Gary, those are good. But the question is going to be like, what are we getting back with it, right? But we have some good cards that we can play. Good example would be Pit Keeper. Pit Keeper is probably one of the best ones because this is a 1 mana. If you have 4 or more creatures, which isn't hard to do in this deck, then you return a creature card from your graveyard to your hand for 1 mana. So you're getting a body and you're getting a creature back for 1 mana, which is basically like on par with your sort of Elvish Visionary, except you you only have selection of cards from it's like card selection and card advantage on the same thing, except that our card selection is limited to what we have in our graveyard, right? So it is card advantage, it's just a different kind. There's other ones though, like Cadaver Imp is another one. Black worries me a little bit on this, but it is a 1/1 flying, gets a creature back for 2 mana. We also have Dutiful Attendant, which is going to be a 2 mana. When it dies, it'll get another target card back from our graveyard to our hand, so that also works. There's a couple more of those as well. There's like Fell Horseman would be another option where you're getting a 2 mana, return a creature from your graveyard to your hand, which again is a bit mid, and then you're getting a 3 mana 3/3. I think this one probably doesn't make the cut. Yeah, there's like Woodland Sleuth is another one. If something died, then we can return a grave creature at random from our graveyard to your hand. Not very good. Even at 3 mana, it's just not very good. We get Wildwood Escort, which is a better body. So it's not really a fodder body. It's like a better body that's coming with that effect. So it's a 4 mana 3/3 that's getting a creature back. Those are all interesting. I tend to prefer just like drawing more cards. And if we're going to pay 5 mana for a Wildwood Escort, I'd almost rather just play this. You know, like pay 5 mana for a 4/4 that ETBs, draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. But as you can see, this is the sideboard. These are cards that we don't have in the deck. This one is not there because it is just expensive. It's a bit clunky, right? Even when it's discounted, even in a deck with a lot of mana, I would rather play something like an Annoyed Altasaur, I think. But we'll see. Another thing I forgot to mention in the presentation is that Generous Scent and Troll of Khazad-dûm have just like never been better. Being like discounted in this deck is very good. This is also a Street Wraith deck, I think, because you can go turn 1, ramp creature, turn 2, cycle Street Wraith, cast Rutstein, get Street Wraith back, and then on turn 3, you can actually just cast the Street Wraith, or you can cycle it again to draw another card. I tend not to like Street Wraith because like Street Wraith is at its most powerful and really its most playable in a deck that is ending the game very, very quickly, where the life loss doesn't really matter that much, and where you have 4 of them in a 60 card deck, where you're very likely to hit them and where you're very likely to chain them. It's better in reanimation type strategies. So this one I'm on the fence about. We'll see. It is just a way to maximize Rutstein and a creature as well. But it's not amazing in cPDH in a lot of decks because your life total matters a lot more, I think, here. And because we're only 1 card out of 99. Like 1 card out of 99 is your Street Wraith, and that's going to like draw you another card. But it's not like when I was playing Is It Blitz in Pauper, I had like 4 Street Wraiths and 4 Gadaxian Probes and 4 Manamorphoses. And it's like we are chaining through so many of these spells in one turn, and we're killing somebody all at once that it didn't really matter that Street Wraith lost you life. But in this format, it really does. Like starting the game at 26 is not something I really want to do. There's a lot of damage going around. So Mango says, been playing Pauper Commander lately because of our playgroup was getting too competitive. I love it so much. It's some of the most fun I've had playing Commander. Cast a gain 20 spell with Vizkopa. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying Vizkopa Guildmage. Vizkopa Guildmage is one that we've talked about on live stream. I've played against it a long time. I've had it assembled a long time. It's a great deck. And the great thing is cPDH is competitive, but it allows for games to actually like progress and for people to make meaningful decisions, you know, like through the course of the game. You get to play a lot more archetypes. Every archetype is meaningful and good, and there's good representatives of it. You also get a lot of really unique effects that uncommon in creatures that aren't legendary that you don't get on legendary creatures in Commander. You know, like Witherbloom Apprentice being sort of like Golgari Spellslinger is kind of bizarre and unusual. So, but yeah, glad you're playing a lot. So much fun. I almost don't want to play regular Commander anymore. I forgot about my $700 decks. Well, yeah, and then you eventually get to the point where you're like, how many cPDH decks is a $700 Commander deck? And you realize that it's like minimum 10. Like your $700 EDH deck, is it 10 times more fun than having like all these other variety of deck, right? I think that's one of the calculus that I go through. I've sold all of my other cards other than just my commons and my uncommons because I just don't play them anymore. Like I don't have money for Magic when it's like $700,000 $1,000, $2,000 is just a lot of money to play a game. And plus, it's really hard to convince other people to play Magic when it's extraordinarily expensive. It's just like it's like selling snake oil. Be like, hey, come play this fun game, and then and you just don't tell them that it's going to be like an incredibly expensive hobby. It's like trying to get somebody into Warhammer, and you're like, this is like the kill team of Warhammer. It's the affordable and reasonable way to like play a game that doesn't like, drain you of your wallet and your hard-earned money. So, but okay, so let's get deeper into this here. Some of the other card choices. So we have Essence Warden here, which may or may not make the cut. It's a good card. It's still just 1 mana in this deck. It is an elf, which is nice. It's going to pay us off more than it's going to pay off other people. Or pay off from other people, but it is great against Abdel. It's great. It actually does stop the draining versions of Abdel because you're going to outgain the Suture Priest if they try to flicker or anything like that. The Gurmag Angler, Hooting Mandrills. I actually do have Keljoran Dead in here as well. This is a pet card of mine. I'll definitely say that. This card is a 1 mana 3/1 regenerate when it enters the battlefield, sack a creature. The sacrifice a creature is an upside in this deck, and it is a 3/1 regenerate, so it's going to be a great attacker early on, very resilient. It's a good blocker later on too. We have a legend in the command zone, so we do get to play Haunt of the Dead Marshes, which is great. And this card, it doesn't get discounted, but it's excellent. Like being able to bring this back when you don't have anything else that you want to sacrifice, to scry one more and then sack to a Village Rites is great. It's just endless fodder, endless value. Milling this into the graveyard is also great value, and our commander isn't going to die very much. So at least that's what I would very confidently hypothesize, is that Rutstein does not die very much. If your opponent has a lightning bolt, Rutstein is not the thing that they're going to be like itching to get rid of. Some other cards I wanted to point out: Writhing Necromass. Writhing Necromass is not a card we see a lot of play because black, while it wants you to have lots of creatures and it rewards you for doing it, it's really hard to make this much better than like a 4 mana 5/5, right? If you have 3 creatures in the graveyard, this is a 4 mana 5/5. And 3 creatures in the graveyard, mid and late game, you might have that. Yep, sure. But in a lot of cases, like if you get this early, it's super, super, super dead in hand. And there's no way to cheapen it really. Like Gurmag Angler, at least by casting your spells, you can do it. But in this deck, I think Writhing Necromass, not only is it getting discounted on its cost, but we're also playing creatures to the board that we're sacrificing and putting into the graveyard, and then this becomes quite cheap. And this is part of the game plan, right? This is a zoo deck. We're playing a ton of creatures, and we're going to overwhelm our opponents with big bodies. And Writhing Necromass really fits the bill there. This is one of the few decks that also gets to play Abyssal Gatekeeper. Abyssal Gatekeeper is in the deck for a couple of different reasons. Usually Abyssal doesn't make it because frequently Abyssal, it reads like you play it and your opponent can kill it and then make you sacrifice your only other creature, which is oftentimes your commander. So it gives your opponents a way to gives them control over when you do the Edict, which is not good. In this deck, it's 1 mana. It's in a board flooded with creatures. So we already have tons of creatures. It's just a 1 mana Edict, right? And that's great. And these Edicts do play into some other really cool cards that we have. So, and one of those that I wanted to point out is actually a White of Precinct 6. This one here. So it's going to get +1/+1 for each creature in your opponent's graveyard, right? So in our opponent's graveyard means this is going to be like this could easily be like a 1 mana 7/7, 1 mana 8/8, like really, really strong. This is a big creature. This card actually makes me wonder how much black decks should just be playing this in general. But as a 1 mana card, definitely we're going to play it here because Edicts are an important part of our plan. Other cards that we want to mention here along the way. Liliana's Elite is one that I am testing with currently. Liliana's Elite is going to be like a 2 mana 5/5 in a lot of cases, which is good. Sometimes when you have it in your opening hand, it's a little bit small, but later on when you play it, it's it's definitely quite big. It does fight the delve a little bit because if you delve away your creatures, it's small. But I think that, you know, we're hungry for threats. Maybe this one doesn't make the cut in the end, but yeah. Delve is definitely a key function. Erosium says, ooh, I like the Gruesome Fate. Yeah, Gruesome Fate, I have, the least I've cast Gruesome Fate for was for 5. So you cast it for 3 and you drain 5 from everybody. But I think that most cases it's like 8. Most cases like 7, 8, which is a lot. Taking 7, 8, I mean 3 mana, deal 21 damage to the table is a huge, huge chunk. Miasmic Mummy or the other discard reach creatures. I don't like mass discard creatures. I mean, it seems weird because you'd think like, don't you want to take a resource from everybody if you're going to do it to one person? But frankly, I don't want to take resources from everybody because taking resources from everybody reduces the table's overall ability to handle combo decks. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to serve up like the game on a silver platter because I emptied everybody's hand. Because the first thing that people are going to discard when they've discarded all their lands is they're going to discard interaction, and then they're going to save card advantage because the card advantage digs them out of the discard. And if they know that you're doing discard heavy stuff, they're going to save their draw spell. Like a Siphon Mind is going to stay in hand, a Victim of Night will go away. And when the combo player goes off, if that Victim of Night was going to do something, then that's really bad if it's not there. So I don't like using the mass discard creatures. You could use targeted stuff if it was like a discard 2. Like I've been having some conversations with people about Hymn to Turok being actually a card that probably is worth playing because I just want to look at a player and say discard 2 cards at random and take care of that player. But I don't want to like be doing it to everybody. I don't want to do that. Mango says, yeah, the main thing, the new players in our pod always feel kind of bad, or we just leave them out, or but our Corvolds and Shieldreds and stuff are just too strong for a casual player. Yep, that makes sense. This looks pretty fun, though. Might even make this guy just big creatures.deck. Are there any transmute cards going on in here? We are not playing transmute. The one card that we could play would be like Brain Spoil, but Brain Spoil is pretty terrible. Brain Spoil is just like a really terrible 6 mana kill spell that transmutes, or 5 mana kill spell that transmutes to find Gary. It finds Underdark Explorer. It finds Avenging Hunter. But we're not like, that's not a very good play to spend a turn. Like if we go 3 mana transmute and then we have to have 7 mana to use the card that we transmute, right? Unless we had some other thing we could transmute for that was cheap, but I don't think we're doing any transmute. Shred Memory is another one, but like there's nothing at 2 mana that we absolutely need that we need to transmute for. Transmuting is mainly for combo. There's sometimes when you transmute, like Shred Memory is a good example of a card you might want in black that isn't blue. So like in Black X that's not blue, you play Shred Memory sometimes because it finds Cranial Plating. It finds like Psionic Gift, which is a pinging ability. So in like Nightveil Predator, you like both the Cranial Plating, the Pinger, and the Graveyard Hate is fine for 2 mana. But in a deck like this, we just want to churn. Game actions is the key. IDK about the creatures, but I like Siphon Mind. Siphon Mind is good, not because it discards, but because it's a 4 mana draw 3. That's the reason. Siphon Mind taking cards out of people's hand is not why I play the card, but the mass discard is at its very best when you are the combo player and you are stripping everybody's interaction out of their hand or emptying their hands, right? That's the best home for mass discard. Outside of that, I highly discourage people from playing those effects. You're not only going to like tilt everybody at the table and make them play bad, but like you don't want to be in position of being table police. And if you take everybody's cards out of their hand and the combo player wins, who they're going to scream at? They're going to scream at you because you set them up, right? You set that combo player up to do that. Because the combo player, if they're protecting their combo cards, right, which are the last cards they're going to discard, then that's what they're going to run out and they're just going to win, right? So that's been my lived experience. I've done mass card discard before. I've seen it done to me. And like tons. And I used to be really about the mass discard, but it's not good. It's not good in this format. Unless you are comboing. So like Abdel Black doesn't have counter spells. They have mass discard. Very, very good in that deck. Empty everybody's hands and you just get to have your way with them. You're already in a 3v1. You're already in a 3v1 usually with Abdel because Abdel is just so busted. So you are kind of like in that 3v1, you do want to take everybody's cards away. The one other place that taking cards away can be good is like if you're in the 2v1 and you've kind of become the mid-range menace, maybe it's like turn 7 and you're really like turning the corner, and they like turn the corner and you like, you know, you Tassiger's Cruelty them and take away their last 2 cards. You're already in the 2v1. So that's good. What's the removal consisting of? Great question. So let's take a look at the removal. Classics, Snuff Out, Spinning Darkness. Don't leave home without Spinning Darkness. This card is very good. It's a free Lightning Helix. This deck is going to be just as good as any at turning it on. Defile. I've been playing a lot more Defile lately because it is a 1 mana answer to, or sorry, not Defile, but Disfigure. Defile almost always goes in black decks, but Disfigure, -2/-2 for 1 mana. This kills Malcolm's, it kills Kedis's, it kills a fair number of pingers, not all of them. It doesn't kill Kessig Flame Breather. It doesn't kill Thermo Alchemist, although those usually aren't the, it's usually Kessig Flame Breather, Firebrand Archer, you know, these sorts of things. There's some of like the Reckless Fireweaver it doesn't kill, but it does kill Artillerist. So it's a bit of a mixed result, but it is 1 mana and it's instant speed. So we can hold this up while we develop. This kind of gives us like 1 more mana during our turn to like do stuff with. And I think that's really premium. Ghastly Demise is the other one. Ghastly Demise is great in plunder decks. This is like maximum plunder. Like we're plundering so hard. We're going to have tons of cards in our graveyard. Ghastly Demise is going to be a 1 mana terminate. Tragic Slip is great. We make our own things die, sorcery and instant speed. Vendetta. Vendetta is going to be a little bit costly because we don't have a ton of life gain in this deck, but I think it's worth it and we need it. Doomblade, Echoing Decay. Always run Echoing Decay in your black decks. Very, very few examples of where you don't. This card hits all of Abdel's tokens and all of TPI's tokens all at the same time because they're all soldiers. It's the same name, even though one's a white creature, white soldier, and one's a colorless artifact creature soldier. They're all the same name. They all die to it. It also kills Gut, and it kills all of Gut's tokens if they don't have Inspiring Leader out. It kills Kadira's rabbits, squirrels. I can't remember. Somebody's going to tilt at me for saying that. But yeah, we got Feed the Swarm. But there's some other ones too. There's Final Flourish and Candy Grapple. We're not going to play Candy Grapple because it only sacrifices creature like tokens. It doesn't sack creatures, but Final Flourish does. There's another one here that we could play as well that is 2 mana. And it is called Vicious Offering. 2 mana instant speed, -2/-2, or you can sack a creature to give -5/-5. And I really like these. They're very flexible and they're very good in creature-based plunder decks. And this is a creature plunder deck, not an artifact plunder deck. So Erosium says, how do we feel about some of the 2 mana make a dude creatures like Doomed Dissenter? Those are fine. But the bodies, this isn't a deck that's like needing the bodies. We don't need like 2 bodies on 1 creature, right? We don't really need that. What we want is creatures that give us value when they come in. You could play things like Doomed Dissenter, but that feeds more into like a carrion feeder type strategy, and I don't really love that. Like this is kind of an aristocrats deck in a sense. Kind of, but it's not, we're not going to play Carrion Feeder. We're not going to play, you know, Viscera Seer, stuff like that. I really don't like those cards a whole lot. They can feel very, very, very bad and meaningless. So we're not going to be doing that in this particular build, but this is not a Renegade map deck. That's correct. Okay, Gruesome Fate, another card I wanted to talk about here too. 3 mana, each opponent loses 1 life for each creature you control. This card is incredibly brutal in this deck, and you're probably going to end a fair number of games with it. Either this or Gary are going to do a lot of work. This is a small Gary, but it can be a much bigger Gary. Actually, it is kind of a bigger Gary. It just doesn't get us life. Right? Like, easy to pop this for 8. Very easy to pop this for 8. Yeah. So, definitely a strong card. Okay, but we're at 114 cards. We do have to figure out what we're going to cut. I think ramp is probably going to be part of it. There's going to be a small amount of ramp that we just don't have the you know, we can't be bothered with. And I'm not sure which one of these it is. Leafkin Druid might be one of them. Leafkin Druid is nice because it survives sweepers, which is cool, and it's probably fairly easy to get 2 mana off of this, but after that it's not really like doing anything else, and we don't really love to sacrifice this, whereas like Primal Druid, Viridian Emissary, these are sacrificable. Werebear is becoming a 4/4 later on. I like Jewel Thief, even though it's a little bit like it's a one-time treasure, but we're getting a 3/3 Vigilance Trample out of it, which I think in the early game is just a really good thing to have to be able to attack with. Llanowar Visionary, drawing a card, making mana, it does a lot there. So Leafkin Druid might not make the cut. Fly says, would more one colorless drop artifact creatures be good in this Gingerbrute, for example? I don't think Gingerbrute is a very playable cPDH card in a lot of ways, because it's like a 1 mana haste that has a lot of text on it, right? In 60 card, it's very good. 60 card Gingerbrute is unbelievable. Here it's free in Rutstein. The only colorless card I have currently that is free is Clay Revenant. And that is because it's a lot of velocity to just be able to play this creature out and then to be able to get it back over and over again. It's a second copy of our Haunt of the Dead Marshes. Now, Clay Revenant is best when paired with Tortured Existence. I don't have Tortured Existence in here anymore. I could be wrong about that. I talked with Alcadron actually quite a bit about this deck, and Tortured Existence, I don't know. Like, Tortured Existence is like at its best when we are skipping like the command tax, when it's in the mid game or something and our commander is being killed a lot, like Sir Conrad. It's very good in Sir Conrad because you're swapping things and you're getting damage triggers every time you swap. And if somebody kills Sir Conrad on the stack, then you can swap it a whole bunch of times, get a bunch more damage triggers. It's like really good there. In this deck, it is nice to be able to draw like an Elvish Mystic and swap it for a Chain Devil or a Vulturous Aven or an Avenging Hunter or an Underdark Explorer or a Troll of Khazad-dûm. So anytime when there's a spread of creatures from like 1 up and the quality, depending on the turn, changes a lot. So like turn 1, Llanowar Elf is amazing. Turn 8, Llanowar Elf, not good. And being able to swap that with Tortured Existence is very powerful. It just means, take that bad card, swap it for a good one, and then put that creature into play. So it's kind of like improving your top decks in the late game for 1 mana every time. I don't know about it here. Like, would we be better off, like, would I be happier with the card if it was just Cadaver Imp? Just like pay 2 mana, we're actually getting ahead on cards and on bodies. And I think that's part of it. Like, being able to discount creature recursion on creatures, I think is better than than Tortured Existence and having a lot of options, like a toolbox of different things. So that's kind of where like Clay Revenant sits. So maybe Clay Revenant doesn't want to be here anymore because we don't have Tortured Existence. Clay Revenant in particular with Tortured Existence is good because you can, in this deck, you can like pay 0 for Clay Revenant, sacrifice it at some point, have your Tortured Existence in play, pay 3 to bring it back, swap it with another creature, and then replay that creature, bring the Clay Revenant back. So it's a slow card draw loop, but it can be very powerful. But I think Clay Revenant maybe just doesn't make the cut here. It doesn't give us anything else when it ETBs or LTBs. Another card that's kind of on my watch list is Crashing Drawbridge. Crashing Drawbridge is 1 colorless for a 0/4, which is good, but it's giving everything haste every turn. And I like Crashing Drawbridge because, like, with these bigger creatures like Avenging Hunter, even Slum Reaper, which is coming in, or Chain Devil and sacrificing something else, giving us a 4/2, giving it haste is good. But also with cards that ramp, like they tap to ramp. Like, what if you have the ability to give Priest of Titania haste, and it's making like 4 mana because there's like elves in play on your side and on other people's side? I haven't seen Crashing Drawbridge do anything for me yet that makes me want to keep it, but I know it can do a lot of really explosive stuff. So we're going to keep it for now, just for experimentation. And yeah, Fly, you're asking about plunder effects and a 0 mana artifact. And what I've found so far is that like our curve is very heavily biased on 2, which means that they're 1 mana. So yeah, you're right. They do. They are 0 mana. Moon Vessel does give us some mana. Let's do MV equals 1. OTAT. Let's see. Type artifact. Type creature. Yeah, let's do that and see what we get here. They both do things on death, right? Notable for cuts, the low power creatures, ramp creatures are probably cuttable as they have almost no aggressive presence. Exactly. The ramp creatures, when we don't have other things in play, can feel bad. So what do we like here? Kind of none of these. Iron Apprentice does kind of put a counter on something, but it's kind of mid. Mirror Moon Vessel is interesting because it is giving us a colorless mana, and I need to actually swap here one sec. I've had some real back problems lately, so I've been using my standing desk here to swap between standing and sitting, which is important. Standing is hard, sitting is hard, both of them are hard, so swap back and forth between them. It's good for your back. Mirror Moon Vessel is interesting. When it dies, you're getting a colorless mana. The colorless is not that useful because we're a very pip-heavy deck, right? If you think about it, we're playing a lot of 2-mana creatures where we're discounting the colorless, so we're paying the pip. Mirror Moon Vessel is... I don't know. Could be good. Could be good. Yeah, you know, none of these are really tickling my fancy, I would say. I think the closest is probably Moon Vessel. Yeah, probably closest is Moon Vessel and Clay Revenant. Yeah. I'm not seeing anything else here I really want. But those are good thoughts for sure. Okay, so let's look here and see what's going to be cut. Now, Lotleth Giant is interesting. This card only hits 1 player. It is a big body. It's very expensive. It is tutorable, which is cool. Being able to just like search out of our, you know, maybe late game. Like I could totally see Lotleth Giant being, somebody sweeps the board and kills Rutstein, and you replay Rutstein. Your board is mostly clear. Maybe you have a couple of big creatures that have survived. You play Rutstein, get back like Fierce Empath, play Fierce Empath for 2, fetch up a Lotleth Giant, and then just kill somebody with the Lotleth Giant. I could see that. But Lotleth Giant in your opening hand is going to feel very, very bad. The fact that it only hits 1 player could be an advantage because you're pulling less aggro with it. You're just killing the problem player in that case. But I'm kind of mid on it. 7 mana is a lot. 6 mana in this deck, you know, is a little bit better. But let's put this one in the sideboard for now because we are going to focus on just trying to finish the deck today. We've had a couple of streams where we just weren't able to do that because the deck was hard. So anyways, Monarch creatures, great question. Thorn of the Black Rose, Entourage of Trest. Those are the main ones. Staunch Throne Guard too. You know, I only put Initiative in here because Initiative helps us get more aggressive. I don't think this deck wants to be sitting back and drawing cards. Monarch wants to make you block, right? It's a much more slower defensive mechanic. You often put Initiative and Monarch in the same deck because they make you want to play the same kinds of cards, and that is Edicts and Sweepers. The reason Initiative is in here is because Initiative is a better mechanic, power level wise, than Monarch, and it's more aggressive and it helps us close the game out. It makes us bigger. You know, it's putting more damage in play, you know, through either Forge, Trap, or the Arena, or through the Catacombs, you know, getting the 401 Skeleton, also flipping a card from 10 cards deep. So Initiative is actually not in here because this is an Initiative Monarch deck, in my mind. We are an aggressive Golgari Zoo deck that plays Initiative because we want to get aggressive and because it discounts it. So there could be a slower version of this perhaps where you play these because again, the only other thing I could say is that turn 2 playing Thorn of the Black Rose is like, a lot of cards. You know, nobody's going to come and get it from you probably, or it's going to be hard. I mean, and really, like, you can play all of these on turn 3. Turn 3 Entourage, Staunch Throne Guard, or Throne, or Thorn of the Black Rose. So maybe it's wrong to not play these, because we have a swarm of creatures. We can always get it back. But I don't really want to... I guess I'm... I don't know. What do you guys think based on what I just said there? This is kind of like snap judgments coming up there. I did make this decision intentionally to not put these cards in there, the Throne Guard, Entourage, and all that. Fly says, I don't love Monarch unless you're running a lot of evasive creatures or don't have access to good black or blue draw. Right. And that's kind of part of what I'm thinking here is that we have like big creatures. Not all of them have evasion. Oh, speaking of evasion, actually. Speaking of evasion. Okay. We need... O died. POW equals 3. MV equals 4. No, we need to get... dead. We deaded it. Yeah, Bone Picker. We need to get Bone Picker in here. Bone Picker is going to be a 1 mana 3/4. I wonder if this has been errated. Interesting. So Morbid isn't... This is kind of like Morbid, right? So it's like Morbid discount 3, but maybe Morbid is only for creatures with like that are in play. It's not like a cast ability. Interesting. There are some other cards that we could be playing too that are worth mentioning. This is a 3 mana 5/5 in this deck, which is also good. And it has trample, right? 3 mana 5/5 trample. There's other ones like this one here at the beginning of your end step. If a creature died this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on it, untap it. So this is like a 3 mana 4/4 in this deck that grows, but that's it's a little bit loose, I think. Same thing with Bullet. Vault Scourge is free. It's 2 life, but Vault Scourge is not a very... I mean, it's an aggressive creature because it's 1 mana. Flying, lifelink. It's good with the Forge. Yeah, it might be good. Let's also look up other Morbid stuff. Because, yeah, there is Caravan Vigil, which is a 1 mana put a land into the battle, into the battlefield, which is good. It's not a creature, so it's not giving us a body to sacrifice. We do have cards like Hunger of the Howl Pack, which is a lot of power and toughness. There's also Ulvenwald Bear, which is a 2 mana 4/4 in this deck most of the time. We are able to make something die almost always. Wake Dancer is 2 mana for 4 power and 4 toughness on 2 bodies. But really, like, this is a 4 mana 4/6 Reach. Don't love Reach. Reach is not a very good ability, in my opinion. It's probably one of the worst keywords that we have. If a creature died this turn, gain 5. Okay, so... and let's just see if there's other stuff that's untagged with Morbid. If O died type creature. Let's see what comes up, because there might be other stuff. Yeah, Cage Zombie... Oh yeah, this one. So Plot. You may pay 1 and black and exile it, cast it as a sorcery without paying its mana cost. So the activated ability is the Plot, so we don't get to discount that. This doesn't become a 1 mana 3/2 flying. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Plot doesn't work with this. Undercity Scrounger is interesting. It's a 2 mana 1/4. If a creature died, create a treasure token, but it's a little bit... Yeah, it's just not... I don't think that's what we're looking for. So yeah, that's kind of it. Erosium says Vault Scourge doesn't fit, just fits the narrative of free creatures with evasion that we've been talking about. Yeah, and Vault Scourge is generally like a pretty good card, right? I think it's a strong card. And the other question is, like, to what degree do we want to play cards that are just good cards anyways? Like, we don't have to, like, if a card is good enough, we should play it regardless of whether there's like some enabling synergy with it. Like if it's good with if it's good in the deck, because we have to say, is it good for the commander? Is it good for the deck, right? So we could have a card that is just above the curve and good for the deck, but it doesn't work with Honest Rutstein at all. That's still fine, right? I hope that makes sense to folks. The other thing that I've been wondering about too is like Seeker Squire, Ixali's Diviner. This is a low land count deck. I noticed that there's a pattern in this deck that I consistently draw too many lands. And that's why we're at 29, is because this ramp package is it's so vigorous, right? We're moving so quickly through our lands and we're drawing so many cards. And that it just feels like I just draw too many lands. So I'm at 31 total right now with 29. And I haven't made any changes. I have 26 swamps in here. Because I haven't balanced this out yet. Like we don't have the final 100. Okay, so cards that are expendable potentially. I think Leafkin Druid can probably go. I was also looking at cards like Silver Glade Shaman Elemental, which is an interesting one as well. I really like this card. I will say it's a pet card. 4 mana 4/4 puts a forest into play, so it's like a 3 mana 4/4. Velocity wise, it's great because it's a big body. It's a big attacker that you can get very early. You can play this on turn 3 pretty easily, but it doesn't really fit. It doesn't really fit, like, I don't know. It just depends on like how we want to structure this, because there could be a theme. Right? Like the theme here is that the Wood Elves is a body that we can sacrifice that ramps. Jewel Thief is a body that we can attack with that ramps. Llanowar Visionary is drawing us a card, giving us a body, and ramping, potentially all of those. Viridian Emissary, purely for ramp and body. Same thing with Sakura Tribe, except Sakura Tribe doesn't give us a body. It's just ramp. It's just ramp, right? Primal Druid, ramp and a body. Priest of Titania could also I mean, it's a really good card, and it does work with the deck because we happen to have a lot of elves, but it's also only ramp. It's not giving us a body. It's not attacking. It's not drawing us a card. When this card produces like Giga Mana and we have like these expensive cards in hand, which we don't have like a huge number of, but I mean, it's going to make for crazy turns. If you make like 3 mana off of this, which seems like it'd be kind of low, like you could easily do more than that. Then it's going to be strong, so it's hard to imagine not playing it. Yavimaya Elder is another card that's been pretty like MVP, getting 2 lands. This one's nice because it sacrifices itself. If we don't have the plunder, we sack it, get the 2 lands, draw a card. If we get 2 lands off of this, we're like not missing our land drops for the rest of the game. So, 2 green for a 2/1 gives us some lands, draws us a card. Seems pretty solid. It's like 4 mana, draw 3. It's kind of how this card looks. We can also sacrifice it to a plunder card. Although generally speaking, because Yavimaya Elder can kill itself, I prefer to plunder other creatures than Yavimaya Elder. Because it does it itself, right? And what if we want that plunder card for another card that wants to die? So that's kind of an interesting one there. Liliana's Elite has been hard to parse because it's almost always above the curve. It's a 2 mana 4/4 oftentimes. It does not work with like the Delve stuff very well at all. Doesn't work with Spinning Darkness. And there is some tension there between the stuff that uses our graveyard and the stuff that, consumes it. Altasaur is another one. Altasaur in a deck like this, there's always a chance that you're going to flip into a Llanowar Elves, and that does feel pretty bad. So maybe Altasaur does not want to be here, even though it's generally a good card. Altasaur hitting like ramp has always been kind of like the fail state of it. Like, obviously, if you Altasaur into a Troll of Khazad-dûm or an Underdark Explorer, you just feel like God mode. But, and it is also tutorable with Fierce Empath. What else is tutorable with Fierce Empath? We have Hooting Mandrills, Gurmag Angler, Writhing Necromass. We have lots of good hits for it. Yeah, like in what case would I take an Annoyed Altasaur over all of those? Probably not, because most of them are very cheap. Like a Gurmag Angler is going to be very cheap, so I think we can ditch the Annoyed Altasaur. I do have Rotide Gargantua here. I think it's actually quite a bit better here than almost any other place I've put it, because we sometimes just want a big body, right? Like we want like a 5 mana or 4 mana 5/4 that can just attack, and we don't need the Edict, right? Or we can get the Edict out of it as well. Owlbear, 4 mana 4/4 trample that draws a card is good. You know, it is a little more expensive than the other draw effects, but it came with a good body. The other card that's kind of similar is actually Silverback Shaman, except that I don't think that Silverback Shaman dies very often. And it's not a card we want to make die ourselves. We don't want to sacrifice Silverback Shaman because it cost us 4 mana and because it's a 5/4 trample. But as a 4 mana 5/4 trample, it's also pretty good. Excavating Anurid was another card that I thought about too. It's a 5 mana. It gains Vigilance and +1/+1 if you have Threshold. It draws a card if you sack a land. So it's like a decidedly worse Owlbear in a lot of ways. But actually, this is better than Annoyed Altasaur. I considered it, but I just didn't have it in the deck previously. So I think that was a good reminder there. Excavating Anurid under draw. Bulkbox Commander says, I like having cheap early turn Death Touch creature to help me buy time to establish my board. So you're talking about like the self-mill creatures like Mire Triton and whatnot. I don't think we want those, although they do fill up our yard nicely. We're not playing a ton of Recursion though. That's one of the things you're going to note here. Like I don't really have those cards in my deck. Like Pit Keeper, it kind of freaks me out that Pit Keeper could be like a 1 mana 2/1 that does nothing. And that should freak you out too, right? Cadaver Imp is double black, but it's a 1/1 flying. Cadaver Imp's probably good enough to put in here. Like Reaping the Graves could be insane in this deck, right? Reaping the Graves could be very, very busted. And it's not a creature, but I think it's almost like too good in this deck to not play. Like if there's a turn where there's like 6 spells cast, we can easily get 6 creatures back. 6 creatures is nothing, dude. So maybe we do want Reaping the Graves just because of the volume, right? There's no other recursion spell that that does what Reaping the Graves does. So let's put Reaping in. This would look like a good Dread Return deck, but we actually, like, most of our creatures are very cheap. So I don't think we want Dread Return. Yeah. Dread Return with Lotleth Giant is good. Okay, other cards that we can cut. We did go deep on the Edicts, and I could cut targeted removal for the Edicts. What do you guys think about that? You know, Edicts aren't always going to hit what we want it to. They are pretty dead in a lot of matchups. Edicts help turn on our mechanics, which is pretty cool. Like going like turn 3, you have turn 1 ramp, turn 2 Rutstein, turn 3 go like, say you have 5 mana open. You go 1 mana Viridian Emissary, 2 mana Fleshbag Marauder. It turns on our synergy, right? And in this deck, this is actually one of those decks where you don't put the Fleshbag Marauder to the graveyard because you want to reuse it. You actually put the other creature into the graveyard because we want the body, we want the aggression. Which actually makes me wonder about cards that give trample every turn. Something like a Stampeding Elk Herd. If we have 8 power, everything we control gains trample, which is nice for those like 4/2s that we make, like Slim Reaper, Chain Devil, stuff like that. Even a Fleshbag Marauder is a 3/1. And then cutting as many double colored pup. Yeah, the double pips is something you can see we've avoided quite a bit, right? Because the pip requirements are really tough. Like Yavimaya Elder kind of looks like the perfect card, but like, am I wrong to think that Yavimaya Elder? Yavimaya Elder feels like it does all the things, but it also feels like 4 mana to get 2 lands and a card. But it still does all the things really well, you know. But and this feels like one of the best decks for it. But I don't know. For some reason, it's kind of turning me off. Like it's not putting the lands into play, which is fine because we're getting 2 of them. It can kind of turn itself on, but it's 2 mana to sacrifice. The 2 pips is partially what's turning me off. Once we get up to like these more expensive cards, it's okay to pay more than 1 pip. But like this is an early game card. This is like turn 3, you untap and you play Yavimaya Elder and other stuff. Yavimaya Elder on turn 3 is actually very good because we're getting all of our lands set up. Basilica Screecher is also very good for 1 mana. Although I think Basilica Screecher is unlikely to be... Yeah, matter of personal choice. I think the way to look at it, to be even more specific with our language instead of just a personal choice, it is clearly a card that works well in this strategy. It comes with additional risk of potentially being strained on your pips, right? Like that is definitely a thing that we could encounter with Yavimaya Elder. I don't think it's the first card I would want to cut though. Another card that we could look at is like Wirewood Herald. Like turn 2, play a Wirewood Herald on turn 3. Sorry, sacrifice it to Village Rites. What are we getting? What elf are we getting? Like what elf is very premium in this deck? And when I look at it, I'm kind of like, there's Essence Warden. There's Priest of Titania. There's Fierce Empath. So one thing you could do is go sacrifice Wirewood Herald, play Fierce Empath, tutor up, a big thing. So essentially Wirewood Herald allows you go Fierce Empath and then find something big like a troll or a Gurmag Angler or something like that. It's a bit of like a chainy sort of a thing, which is kind of a lot. Oh, what's up, Zach? Good to see you. Extort. Yeah, so Basilica Screecher, yeah, I mean, yeah, we cast a lot of spells. Yeah, Basilica Screecher is good in this deck. It's a good card. I have been finding lately that Basilica Screecher, in the early game, it can be hard to find the mana to cast it, right? It can make you like want to tap more mana than you should. But it's a good card. In mid game, it's amazing. Mid game, you're getting like maybe 3/4, 2/3 of your spells you're extorting. So I think it's good. Herald is 1 mana cantrip, same as Visionary, same as any of the others. Yeah, so this one, right, so it's a 1 mana cantrip. So I guess we could look at it and say it's not so much that it only finds an elf, because our elves aren't super premium, right? Like, in terms of mid-game, like, I'm not, like, happy to, like, look for a Llanowar Visionary or Wood Elves, but it is 1 mana for a card that gives us a card. It's just a specific subset of cards. We do have some flexibility to find a variety of different things, like Viridian Emissary if we had a sacrifice effect in hand, to ramp, or like, Wood Elves if we just want to get ahead. Or is there anything that puts a wood, like no, that wouldn't work. There's nothing bigger than that. There are other options, like Elvish Aberration was a thought I had, because Elvish Aberration would be like a big elf that we could find that ramps hard and also punches pretty well, right? Like it's a 4/5. There aren't a lot of like expensive, super expensive elves out there. Wildwood Escort is another one, but I don't know that I'm fully bought into that one. Yeah. We could also put like Nameless Inversion in this deck. Nameless Inversion is an elf card. So it would give us like a piece of removal to hit, or actually Eyeblight Ending. Eyelight's Ending is an option, right? If we wanted to have a single piece of removal that we could tutor with Wirewood Herald, it is a tribal elf card or a kindred elf card. Yeah, okay. Liliana's Elite is starting to feel kind of just like if it's getting +4/+4, it's a 5/5 for 2 mana, which is good. So maybe I shouldn't be cutting it. Maybe it is just better than it looks. Because we are playing like Bayou Groff, which is like a 1 mana, sacrifice a creature, 5/4. Maybe Bayou Groff just looks better. I don't know. Liliana's Elite's just kind of funny that way. I look at the 3. I shouldn't look at the 3. It's really like a 2 mana. It's always going to be at least +2/+2. So always a 2 mana, 3/3 at very minimum, but it's probably going to be quite a bit bigger. Right? This card will grow over the course of the game. It does fight cards like Gurmag Angler, or Gurmag Angler fight it, kind of. Okay. Other cards that we can cut. Probably something out of ramp. This is a lot of ramp. Yeah, the Basilica Screecher is pretty important. We do need the life gain. And that's going to help us do it. We cast a lot of spells, so it's quite good there. It's not like you're, paying 7 for, Phyrexian Gargantua to extort it, right? You're casting a lot of spells, so you're going to have a lot of agency there. We could cut some of this targeted removal, and we have Feed the Swarm in here. Feed the Swarm would be like one of my first cuts, because I just don't know like what enchantments I'm like super worried about, like. Yeah, I'm just not sure what enchantments I'm super worried about. And then, like, instead, maybe I would play something like Wickerbow Elder, which is pretty cool, because Wickerbow Elder is a 3 mana, 3/3 that can remove a counter to make itself a 4/4 to blow up an enchantment. And it's also a creature we can get back with Honest Rutstein. There's also Conclave Naturalists, which is pretty sweet. Right? 4 mana, 4/4, ETB, destroy an artifact or enchantment. I almost want to play a couple of these, but I wanted to talk with you all about them first because I don't know how. I don't know what enchantments or artifacts we want to destroy. Like, why are we playing them in the deck? Like, is it because we're worried about our commander getting, like, witness protection or something? Because I feel like if that, like, this is a terrible deck to do that against because we just have all these edicts, right? Like, this deck is a terrible deck to put, like, that on. Oubliette, I guess, but, like, Oubliette is... Yeah, Faceless Butcher probably wants to be in this deck, too. Yeah, it definitely wants to be in this deck. Yeah, I mean, there's a world where we actually like take this package here and we take it and we make it mostly creatures. Like if we go OTAG removal type creature, not all creatures. We're not going to be able to get it. We won't have a good deck if we make it all creatures. But there are other ones that we could look at, like. Yeah, Urchin could be a problem. Blasting a Far Traveler is a great tempo play. Oubliette, asking about... Yeah, so Oubliette is something somebody might put it... Yeah, right, they might... I don't know that they would target our thing with it. Like, that would be a bummer if they did. But also, we have instant speed ways to interact with that. Blind Zealot is another option. Like... It's a creature we can attack with every turn. It's 2 mana, mostly unblockable. Destroy a creature they control. Is this better? Is this more what we want to be doing? Putting our removal on a body does seem solid. Yeah, maybe Blind Zealot. And Blind Zealot was in the deck before. Briarblade Adept being a 4 mana 3/4. Whenever it attacks, it gets -1/-1. This is a card you mainly want to cast from the graveyard. Enters the battlefield, target creature an opponent controls gets -X/-X, where X is the number of creatures in your party. We have a Warlock in the command zone. Party mechanics only work when you have a commander who is a cleric, rogue, wizard, or warrior, and then ample other of the not that in the deck. So, like, for example, party would be good if your commander was a cleric and then you had like a lot of rogues in the deck, right? On accident. You wouldn't want to play a lot of rogues just to play a card like this, but Eyeblight Assassin, no. I don't really love Festering Goblin type cards or Fume Spitter. There's some experimentation happening with it right now, but I just don't think they actually kill very much. You need -2/-2 most of the time. Gorgon Recluse. Nope, we don't want that. We need targeted stuff. When this is put into a graveyard from play, target creature gets -2/-2. That's a little bit better. This is very much similar to the 3 mana one, except that it's more mana. And it can be done right away. But most of our effects, yeah. There is Krosan Wolverine, but Krosan Wolverine wants to be given like first strike or something. So you can do it over and over again. Or a deck that pumps it up, right? That's much better. Oh, I didn't know this card existed. You know, sometimes when you do like you're searching in a deck and Moxfield like constrains your search to meet the requirements of the deck for colors, and then you find new cards that just haven't popped up in your general Scryfall searches. When this dies, target creature and opponent control gets -3/-3, and it can force it to be blocked, but it's 6 mana. And part of the reason like that I have like some of this weird removal like Disfigure is that I want to be really respectful of it's a funny word to use for it, but respectful of like combo decks right now. Masked Vandal would be the best of the ETB disenchants. 1 mana, 1/3. It's a good fodder body that we can reuse. That just exiles a creature from our graveyard to exile an artifact or an enchantment. I think that's probably the one we would pick. Mold Shambler, a little too spendy. I think we do like the Masked Vandal, though. Let's bring that in. I'm not sure exactly what we need disenchants for, to be honest. Like, I don't. The question is like, what are we worried about losing to? And a disenchant is probably going to be like a tempo play on like a Gretchen. What's it killing against Abdel? Not that much. Not that much that I'm like worried about. And it does destroy Hopeless Nightmare. Hopeless Nightmare is a nightmare. Mesmeric Fiend is kind of interesting. I've been kind of thinking about lately like the power of duress effects lately, and Mesmeric Fiend is not exactly that, because they probably can get it because we probably don't have a sacrifice effect and Mesmeric Fiend, but that's interesting. If we do have a sacrifice effect, it's good. Myconid Spore Tender is another one that we could look at as well. This one, when it enters the battlefield, to destroy up to 1 artifact or enchantment. 3 mana, 4/1, probably attacks once and then dies. Erosium mentions, notably, Morph and Disguise cards cost 2 now. Make sure to remind me about that if I don't come back to it. But after we look through this list, I definitely want to look into Morph and Disguise. See if there's anything we're missing. This one here, 3/2 for 5 mana because of the discount. Deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker. An opponent controls, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Also expensive. A lot of these creatures that are like in common that destroy creatures or do something bad to them are expensive. Yeah, like we just don't have cards like, Ravenous Chupacabra, which I would love. I would love if we had that, but we don't. Black Cat is half of a Hymn to Turok on a body. Yep. On a targeted kind of a situation. Predatory Night Stalker, 4 mana, 3/2 that has one player sacrifice a creature. I think this is a little bit worse than the other ones, notably because it's a little bit more expensive. Predatory Night Stalker is an interesting card, and it might be underplayed because it's not putting you... It's actually creature positive for you. You're getting one creature from an opponent, probably the one that most needed to be edicted, and then you're keeping your creature. The other ones are creature... Like, you are getting 3 creatures from your opponents in total, but you also aren't building up a board. They're like tempo neutral. Whereas this is tempo positive. But in this deck, we actually want to be sacrificing our own stuff. So I don't know if that makes the cut there. Prowling Pangolin. This is a stupid card. If you're playing against a TPI player, you're just going to be like so sad when you play this. Because they can just sack 2 tokens. Or an Abdel player, sack 2 tokens. Sacrifice the Prowling Pangolin. Rooftop Assassins, new. Destroy target creature an opponent controls that was dealt damage this turn. With the creature discount, some of these are a little bit better, but like, has to be dealt damage. How are we doing damage? How are we doing this? But hey, flying lifelink flash. It's actually pretty pushed. For this effect is pretty bad, but like, it works nicely with with your Kumbaj witches. Okay. What else are we looking for? Silumgar's Butcher. Now we're talking. 4 mana, 3/3 exploit, -3/-3. This is actually a pretty... Okay, actually, there's a couple of cards like this. There's another exploit card that we're going to go into as well. And I think we're actually going to play Butcher. Butcher is 4 mana, 3/3, kill a thing. This is actually Chupacabra. This is Ravenous Chupacabra, except we will sack a thing. And there's another one just like it. There's the Morph. So you may cast this for 2, and then you may pay 5. It's so fucking bad. Just don't think so. Just don't think so. I wish we could do these, right? Like, how would we turn this on, though? You have to just do damage to the creature, so you have to like swing out with all your stuff and maybe some of it dies, and then you play your Stingblade Assassin, because then it's pretty good, right? It's a 3 mana 3/1 flying that kills a creature. The flying ones in particular would be the ones we would want. The flash is pretty cool. The Morph Disguise guy I found that's even worth considering was Nervous Gardener. And that one puts the land into your hand. Oh, Troublemaker, oof. This one requires you sack a token, artifact, or enchantment. We don't really have those. This requires gates. Vengeful Creeper is with Disguise. So this one is disguise it for 2, flip it for 6. I don't know. I don't know about that. Voracious Varmint. This card is pretty funny. The new one. 1 mana 2/2. Vigilance, destroy an artifact or enchantment. This actually might make the cut. Just because it's very inexpensive. It's instant speed activation. It's kind of like a Wickerbow Elder that has a bigger body, higher tempo. Where is that card, though? It is Exploit. There's another one. It's Vraska's... Loathsome Curator. That's the one. This is actually pretty sick in this deck. 4 mana 5/4 Menace with Exploit. Destroy a target creature with a mana value 3 or less. We're definitely playing that. Definitely playing that card. Silumgar Scavenger. Whenever another creature you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and it gains haste if it exploited that creature. So if this is a 4 mana, 3/4 flying haste, 4 mana, 3/4 flying haste that will get bigger. Do we like that? I mean, I think we would play this if we were also playing like Mortician Beetle. Do we want to be playing Mortician Beetle? I mean, Mortician Beetle, if we're going like deep into the mass sack and stuff, and even just with our own sacrifice, it's kind of funny because it's not one that would like come up on your radar if you were looking at mana costs, like trying to maximize your discount. But this card is, I think, quite likely to grow big. It's kind of cheap. It's a big. It'll become a big threat if you go like turn 1 ramp creature, turn 2 Rutstein, turn 3 Mortician Beetle into Viridian Emissary into Fleshbag Marauder. It's a big power swing, right? Because you're going to keep the Fleshbag Marauder and you're keeping the Mortician Beetle. I think we want Mortician Beetle. Let's see. We got to look at the text on this. Whenever another creature you control, sacrifice type creature. Let's see how many other payoffs for sacrificing our stuff we have. Blind Zealot, I think, was kind of interesting. Destroy target creature that player controls. This is pretty cool, I think. It is a creature-based removal spell. Emperor Crocodile is a 3 mana 5/5. It's like never gonna die to this ability. Interesting. There's like Imperiosaur as well, but Imperiosaur only works off of lands, I think, is how that works. If you can only be produced by basic lands to cast it. So that's, yeah, kind of weird. Yeah, Neckrite is the same thing without evasion as the Blind Zealot. What about Gorilla Pack? What is this? Can't attack unless defending player control. Okay, never mind. Never mind. So whoever you control. Oh, maybe it's dies. Maybe it's dies is how that the text is written on that. Because it wasn't sacrifice. Yeah. Oh boy. Now we're into the sauce. Desperate Farmer here. Whenever a creature you control dies, transform it. It becomes a 4/3 lifelink for 2 mana. It's kind of interesting. Whenever another creature you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So this thing is a 3 mana 3/5, probably minimum, but it probably gets quite a bit bigger. Whenever you control dies, scry 1. A dash of invasive species. Interesting. Oh yeah, Rot Shambler. Whenever another creature you control dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Rot Shambler. This is almost more interesting than the Silumgar Scavenger because we can play it for 1 mana, right? And immediately start to grow it. I could see this being a little bit slow to grow, right? I don't know that we need the Scry one. We've got so much card advantage in this deck that cards like this aren't super appealing to me. It might be correct to, maybe it's wrong to not play it. This one says 3 mana, 4/5, put -2/-2 on target creature you control. When it dies, you may put a -2/-2 on target creature for each -1/-1 on Soul Stinger. So this is a 3 mana 2/3. Because like what I'd prefer is if I could just play a 3 mana. Nah, that's not what we want. Wart Eye Witch. This is another one that pays you off when creatures die. You get a lot of scrying. This is also a deck that could totally use like Snarling Gorehound type effects. There's also whenever another permanent leaves the battlefield with there's a couple of those. Good look at that. And whenever another creature dies, gets +1/+1. I don't know. I mean, we could lean very heavily into that. We could lean very heavily into this sort of like when creatures dies thing, which would actually narrow our focus quite a bit because we would be getting out of the territory of playing like, Priest of Titania, which is just like a good card in Golgari. There's definitely an angle in black where we say we just want things to die all the time. Where, Rot Shambler would be good, Voracious Vermin. Then we would kind of have like passive ways to like build our big creatures, right? With like Gavany Unhollowed to be another one. Actually, let's go. What is this card called? It's a power equals 2/0 flying. Oh, it's Nefarious Imp. Nefarious Imp. And we also want to look at Gitaxian or Gixian Infiltrator. But this is another one, 2 mana, 2/1 flying. Whenever one or more permanents you control leave the battlefield, scry 1. So the way to do this would be like play this out with a Viridian Emissary or something, or a creature that ETBs and searches for a land, and then you would stack the searching of the land first and then scry 1. Because you would choose between the dies and the when the permanent leaves. I kind of like it because it's a 2/1 flying. You'll notice we aren't playing any like mass sweepers in this deck, so I don't know. Maybe we do want to do that, chat. Let me know what you think here, because this is definitely like a pivot point here where we have to decide, like we have to pick a lane. We have to pick a lane, and there's like a lane available here that we could go for that would increase our creature density, but it's going to cost us. It's going to cost us something. It's going to cost us ramp. It's going to cost us targeted removal. While we're at it, we should probably just get rid of like Feed the Swarm, probably like Terror, although Terror is good. Blind Zealot's fine. Leafkin's out. Phyrexian Vivisector doesn't really do anything else. Yeah, I mean, we could go deep down a different route here. So let's get some stuff organized. I think Mortician Beetle just as a whole is going to be very good in the deck with all these edicts, because we want to play lots of edicts. Not because this is like a deck that wants to control things, but because like these edicts are upgrading power, they're triggering our own things, and since we're already doing that anyways, we want cards like Mortician Beetle. Masked Vandal is going to be a naturalized, and it's going to be a creature. Loathsome Curator is going to be a creature and removal, and it's actually very good. I like that card a lot. We can play it out on turn 3 even. Silumgar's Butcher as well. Creatures, removal. If we're going down the sort of like deep down that... Oh yeah, we need to go look at Invasive Species. Invasive Species. 3 mana, 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, return another permanent you control to its owner's hand. So it allows us to like pick up a Llanowar Visionary or something. Yeah, that could work with the edicts. That's interesting. It works with our commander, but I'm not sure how premium that is. Look at this. We're at 66 creatures right now. I do think this deck is going to end with at least 45 creatures in it, which is much more than you will see me play in almost any other deck. We have like Serulf's Packmate. It's not amazing. It's giving us a good body. There's also some weird ones like Mob and Overwhelming Remorse, which are starting to look really good. Like if we do end with like a deck where most of our removal is like creatures, like currently 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of it is on creatures, but like we might be in the territory of being able to play Overwhelming Remorse as a very efficient removal spell. Street Wraith, I think, can go. I don't think Street Wraith is where we want to be. I might be wrong about that, but I don't know that I necessarily am. Um, the other cards that I'm looking at too is Ixali's Diviner and Satyr Wayfinder and Seeker Squire and Blanchwood Prowler. I don't know if these cards are like all that premium here. They're 1 mana. They don't always get us a card. And they're all focused on lands. I think Satyr Wayfinder probably makes the cut because you can get any land that you've put. Wait, put a land card from among them. It has to be from among them. So, like, the issue I have here is that I don't know that I want lands. I want cards. Yeah, Erosium, it's a great question with Vampire Spawn. I did initially. You can see Vampire Spawn is in this sideboard. Those of you here know that I'm like a big fan of these. I would love if we could find room for those two. But we are 19 cards over, and I just don't know, like, how many of them are there, I guess would be the question. So each, and then it's going to be O life or O damage, and then it's going to be O enter or O dies. Yeah. God, there's other things we could... I mean, we could even be playing weirdo stuff like Falconwrath Noble. Yeah, like Arrogant Outlaw is great here. Some of these cards are not terribly good, except for in this deck, like Blister Grub being a 2 mana... 2 mana instead of 3. Arrogant Outlaw would be on the list because we are attacking. Etched Familiar would be on the list. Malakir Blood Priest would need Clerics, Warriors, Rogues, and Wizards. I don't think we have enough of them to make this work. At least that's my intuition. Let me see. This, by the way, the reason that this is a zoo deck is not just because it has lots of creatures, but because there's not a single deck I've ever assembled that has more creature types. So, yeah, Soul Cage Fiend seems insane. Like that card already is way above the curve in terms of damage. If it's 2 mana, it's very strong. So Rogue, we have 2 Rogues, 2 Wizards, 2 Warriors. And then for Clerics, we have 3, but the card is already a Cleric. I don't think that is going to make the cut. Spore Crawler in that last dump of cards. Spore Crawler. I'll have to come back and look at that one. Remind me if I don't remember to come back and check. Nocturnal Feeder, very good here. 2 mana, 2/1 flying that drains when it dies. Soul Cage Fiend, Serrated Scorpion is already just like really good in those types of, like, you know, each player loses type things. Yeah, I mean, there's like Tattered Mummy. You could build this into like kind of a burn, burn deck type thing. Yep, this here. And then Soul Cage Fiend. Oh, Soul Cage. Yeah, Soul Cage Fiend is pretty savage. This card hits so hard. Spore Crawler. So the reason we aren't playing Spore Crawler is because it is a 3 mana card that needs to die. And so it has a good body, but we don't really want it to die. Bulkbox Commander says, going to sign off for the evening. Great stream. Thank you for showing up. Appreciate you being here, and hope you have a good rest of your evening. So we won't be playing Spore Crawler. There's a lot of 3 mana cards that like ETB draw or draw when they die, and I chose not to play them just because the 2 mana ones that were made 1 mana felt so much better. Okay, so what else do we have here? So Priest of Titania could potentially... It's just, I mean, we have 15 elves, right? Still? Yeah, we have 15 elves. I think that the Explorer cards are going to go away. I don't think Explorer is a good mechanic at all. And maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think that, like, I don't know. It's just not my favorite. It is in a mana slot that is like relevant because it's 1 mana, right? And maybe I'll be wrong about that and we can go back to playing it, but I don't know if that's totally the case. Silmagar Scavenger is whenever another creature dies. So this is going to have to grow to become bigger, but it is haste and flying, which is, which is definitely nice. But yeah, I think we're going to sideboard that one for now because it's just so much mana. Whereas other stuff like, yeah, less so. Yeah, I'd love to get the ETB drainers in here. Liliana's Elite's only getting better. Satyr Wayfinder is gonna put a land into our hand, probably. But I think we can do better than that. We have so much good fodder. But we just did cut four pieces of that. We have Naturalize. What other stuff do we have in here? Gruesome Fate, Reaping the Graves. Yeah, so now we have to make like questions or answer questions about... Oh, wait, isn't there a new... There's a new type draw... Thunder Junction. What's the set code for Thunder Junction? There's a new black creature that draws when it ETBs. Like a Phyrexian Rager that can target other players, which is kind of wild. But that one's actually a 3/1, so it's a better body. Okay. Go back to this here. Maybe, so Sakura Tribe Elder is another one of these ones that's like good with Rutstein because it's just 1 mana, like into the north, kind of. Or like one, natural or nature's lore. But like for the deck, it's not leaving us with a body. It's not giving us a body. And we do have to be cognizant that we don't like put too much big stuff on the end of the curve and not support it with all the other stuff we need to just make the deck work, right? We need like a strong supporting cast of creatures that ramp us and draw us cards and are cheap to play that want to die. And like cards like Nefarious Imp do sort of take us in this direction of like aristocrats can be kind of janky when you want to have 3 different things in play. The thing that needs to die, the thing that pays it off, and then things that sacrifice them, right? And we're not really doing the things that sacrifice them so much. We're just focusing on like Edicts, which is more incidental, right? And then our draw spells, which are not repeat. Wary Thespians. Wary Thespian's a green that surveils, right? Oh, wow. I didn't look at surveil. Yeah, Wary Thespian is actually better than the... Is it better than Explore? Because Explore can actually put the card in your hand, but this does when it enters the battlefield and dies, and it's a 3/1. Surveil type creature. Could also look at Scry as well. This is a new one here, Disguise. So you can gain 1 life, surveil 1 whenever it deals damage. It's a 3/4 flying. Its disguise cost is cheaper, so you pay 2 for the disguise, 2 to put it face down, and then 5 to flip. No, it's too much. This is a deck that could definitely like make use of Snarling Gorehound, but this is also like, would we rather this slot be something that just produced value when it entered and died, as opposed to when other things are doing that? Because you can kind of, I don't know, you can get kind of wrapped up with having these cards that don't serve that core function. Rubble Belt Maverick is also like how do we compare these two cards, right? This one surveils 2 right away, doesn't produce another body, doesn't draw us a card, but it does surveil, so it is doing the thing. It's not being discounted. It has an ability from the graveyard. Because we have to like look at this and say, like, even though this is when it ETBs and dies, this is the same amount of mana, and it's going surveil 2. it's easy. Basically, what I'm trying to say is it's easy to look at a card that doesn't get discounted and say, well, because it doesn't get discounted, it's not good for Rutstein. But that's not true, right? Like, it could be that a card is just good enough for it because of what it's doing. So, like, Rubble Belt Maverick is on par probably with, like, Haunt of the Dead Marsh. It's surveilling 2 instead of scrying 1 for the same amount of mana. For it doesn't come back over and over again, but it does put a counter on something if we want, which is kind of cool. You can make Rutstein a 4/3. Oh no, we're adding cards. What are we doing? Surveil. Let's do Scry too. I just want to see what other Scry. Yeah, there's Bronze Walrus. That's another one too. Greedy Freebooter. When it dies, you scry 1 and create a treasure. Not being discounted. Ooh, that's really hard to tell. Yeah, that's really tough. Tough to say. Oh, Undercity Scavenger. When it enters the battlefield, you make it's exploit basically. So 3 mana 3/3 exploit. If you do, it becomes a 5/5. 3 mana 5/5 scry 2. That's actually pretty damn good. I think I would rather. I kind of like that actually. We're getting a good body. Oh boy, 117 cards. Okay, so then it does make me wonder about cards like Fierce Empath, which is like a 2 mana, and then you get to pick a specific creature, and there are good ones you can play. So like Fierce Empath, if it finds Gurmag Angler, or then it's like 3 mana, put 6 power into play. But there's other things it can find, like Troll of Khazad-dûm. It's quite unique that way. Wirewood Herald is going to find an elf, probably. Just some random elf. Undercity Scavenger is actually pretty cool here. Most of the time, you wouldn't want to play that card because it's 4 mana, and you're getting a 5/5 out of it. 4 mana 5/5 that sacked a creature. Scry 2 is like pretty fine, I guess. But okay, so now for removal, we could probably cut something like... There's a part of me that feels like Vendetta is too important right now. Like, Vendetta is really good. Vendetta will feel a lot better if we have, like, the Drain package with, like, Arrogant Outlaw, Etched Familiar, Vampire Spawn, all that stuff. And maybe we're just supposed to have those cards in here anyways. So now we need to find our cuts. And, you know, one thing we could potentially do... You know, maybe the initiative is not what we want to be doing here. The thing is that the initiative comes on good bodies, right? It's aggressive and the bodies are good. Just asking, is initiative something we do or don't want to do, doesn't really help us a ton here because it is an aggressive mechanic. We are an aggressive deck. The creatures themselves are good. Vicious Battle Rager, I guess, is the least aggressive of all of them, but it is great with the Forge. You know, Vicious Battle Rager is actually pretty aggressive because oftentimes you forge it. And we're 117 cards and we need to cut cards. Writhing Necromass, I'm wondering like how consistent this is going to be. I'm even looking at Haunt of the Dead Marshes. Like, I know this card is good in this deck, but it also, like, does it compete for slots with cards that you just play once and you're done with them? Something like your Rubble Belt Maverick, or your Wary Thespian. MV equals 2, and I've done this before. O, enter, and it's O, enter, or O, dies, type creature. And you can look at all of the 135 2-mana creatures that have an enter or dies trigger. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, it gets +1/+1. That's kind of crazy, right? You play this... We play a lot of creatures in this deck. This thing could get very large. But it doesn't stay large. Proliferate. If we had a lot of counters, it would definitely do something. Oh, Brindleshote. This card is really good. It's a 1-mana 3/3 that basically, you know, comes with a body. I think Brindleshote we definitely want here. I forgot about that. This is a classic in Golgari Aristocrats. A Crooked Custodian. Dauntless Survivor. Elvish Vanguard. This triggers off of other elves. Like your opponent's elves. I did not know that. It's obviously templated in the old way that you got from, Onslaught, but that's pretty interesting. This could become big off of other people's stuff. I might have been wrong about the Explorer. We'll see. I'm still not convinced we need a Naturalize in this deck because, like, the big ones would be like Pestilence and then, like, being able to tag enchantments on a Gretchen player. There's other things too, but, like, I don't know. They're not usually, like, high on my list. And in this deck, it's not that super high on my list. I'll put this in the sideboard, take it out for a moment. Monstrosity. Rot Shambler is starting to look really good. Sultai Emissary. Snarling Gnarlid is just landfall, but it doesn't stay there. Sylvan Ranger is giving you a land, but it's not putting it into play. That actually could be good enough to cut a land. Right, because it's basically 1 mana, get a land, and get a body. That's actually a really interesting idea. These 2 mana cards, like this, the Satyr Wayfinder, Explore cards, some Explore a little less so, but like the fail state on like if you were to go and say this is a land, where did it go? Elvish, Sylvan, yeah, Sylvan Ranger. So Sylvan Ranger, if we were to miss our land drop, if we only had 1 land, a Mana Dork, and a Sylvan Ranger, if we were to miss the land, we can find the land with Sylvan Ranger. But if we don't, and we just hit it, then we get to play this for 1 mana, and it's basically as good as an Ash Barrens, but it comes with a body, right? So we could go even lower on our land count, which is interesting. That's kind of that's a stranger path to go down. But it's a possibility. The Wary Thespian was a great recommendation. And then maybe in that case, like, cards so the Explore cards don't get us a land always. They're going to get us a land like 25% of the time, which is probably why we should cut them. If we're going low on land count, then we shouldn't play those, right? Sylvan Ranger definitely gets us a land, and it's definitely only 1 mana. So then are there any other cards that would find us a basic for 1 mana? Like a 2 mana, put a land into your hand kind of a thing? MV equals 2, type creature, O search, O land. There are, but a lot of them put them on top. Do any of them put it into your hand? Dawn Treader Elk. Nervous Gardener. When it's turned face up, search your library for a land card with the basic land type, reveal it. So this is 1 mana 2/2, but it only does that when it's turned face up. So this would be 3 mana to disguise it and then cast it for its disguise cost as a total to get a 2/2 that searches for a land and puts it into your hand, which is not on rate. Okay, so we pretty much have all of them. Oh, except for Gatecreeper Vine. Search your library for a basic land card or gate card, reveal it and put it into your hand. Yeah. This will work. This is good. All the other ones put it on top, except for Borderland Explorer. Each player may discard a card. Each player who discarded a card this way may search their library for a basic land card, put it into their hand. I don't like that I'm giving my opponents help. Zach says, I love the searches actually for curve reasons. Dork, Rut. Oh, yeah. No, and you're right, Zach. And part of the thing is, like, I want to keep going down on lands. Like, I've tested this deck, I think it's like 30 or more times now through the playtest, just running through, looking at curve and, like, how smooth it runs and spending my spells as I can. And I frequently flood out. So that tells me that, like, and I'm already at 29 lands, but we only need two lands and a 1 mana dork to operate. So these are kind of like Ash Barrens on bodies, right? I don't know. What do you guys think about Borderland Explorer? You tell me what you think here. Rosium says, I kind of think that there's a lot of juice in making 4 drops cost 3 mana and then 3 drops costing 2 mana. I fear that only having 2 drops is going to make us empty our hands too quickly. That's a valid fear. And I think normally you'd be right. But the density of them in this deck, I think, is what's leading me to believe otherwise. Because when I'm playtesting it, I'm not finding that. I'm not running out of cards until, like, I don't know. So, I mean, sometimes not at all, but maybe like turn 9. Turn 9, maybe I'm getting, like, kind of dry on cards. I like Borderland Explorer because it's a 3/1. 1 mana 3/1. But it is, like, costing us a card to do it, and it's helping everybody else. We're not going to play this card. I don't like that. No. I think we found the ones we want. Gatecreeper, Primal, Viridian, Sakura, Sylvan. Those are the premium ones. Okay, and we're still at 120 cards because we need to cut some. So let's cut some lands. We're definitely going to cut lands for... We don't need to play Abundant Harvest. I've been saying lately that all green decks should play Abundant Harvest instead of a basic. I think in this particular case, our low land count is going to make that slow us down. And we really do want to get Rutstein out earlier than later. So... it is nice so we can turn... I don't think that's going to fit. Okay, and then we've got Brindleshote, creature, Gatecreeper Vine, creature, also kind of a land, Sylvan Ranger. And we could probably go down 1 more land. And then we need to remove some of the removal, because I think where we're going to end up is probably around, like, 20. Yeah, we might actually... this is probably a place where we're going to have to make a lot of compromises. Blind Zealot is starting to look a little weird. Blind Zealot is not going to deal with combos that come out super early. It's going to deal with combos that... it's like attrition on the combo, right? Like how do we like this as a card that deals 2 damage and blows up a creature on a creature? I think we can do better than that. I'm actually going to leave that one. These Loathsome Curator, for example, is, like, way heavier hitting than that. So go for the throat, good. Final Flourish is great. We might even choose to play something like Vicious Offering in here as well. Doomblade, so we could play Doomblade over Vicious Offering, or Vicious Offering over Doomblade, or maybe if we don't get the Drain creatures, then Vendetta doesn't make the cut. Vendetta's good, but Vendetta also requires that we sacrifice something, or it's something died. Oh, no, it doesn't. So this is just 1 mana do it. I'm thinking of Tragic Slip. So Tragic Slip requires that something else died this turn. So it's going to be kind of like... this will almost always be Sorcery Speed. Tragic Slip, which is fine. But maybe like Maybe Defile. What's our color balance? Mostly black. So Defile is going to be good. We're going to be about 50-50 green and black when it comes to lands because we need green in the beginning. Priest of Titania still good, but like maybe Jewel Thief doesn't make the cut. There's even Werebear, but Werebear is so nice. It becomes a big creature. You know, Jewel Thief is a good creature in the beginning. Llanowar Visionary draws a card and ramps us, but maybe Llanowar Visionary is just... Turn 3, it's good, right? You play it for 2, you draw a card, you get this dork, right? And we're kind of still fine to sacrifice it. Wood Elves is very good. So these are all like pretty premium, so we're definitely going to have to make hard choices. Like Boreal Druid definitely doesn't make colored mana, which is a problem. Elves of Deep Shadow does hurt us quite a bit throughout the course of a game, but we need to play the 1 mana ones. This is all built on these 1 mana ones. So, you know, Kel'Joran Dead is another one we could cut to. It's pretty tempo positive because we're like turning a creature that wanted to die into something, to a death effect for a 3/1 for 1 mana. It's very cheap. It's kind of a great way to turn on Bone Picker. Essence Warden might actually be where we want to make a cut. It's a good card in a deck like this. It's definitely going to get us a lot of life, but it's not attacking and it's not something we're happy to sacrifice. We could just play the ETB drain creatures, right? Like, yeah, we have a gazillion creatures to trigger this off of, but like, would we rather have something that did damage to people because we're like proactive? Because we're a zoo deck, right? We want to hit people. So maybe like Essence Warden wants to be Serrated Scorpion. I would buy that, even though there's no discount on it. Even Tattered Mummy. Although Tattered Mummy doesn't give us life. Arrogant Outlaw still feels pretty good there. I think I'm going to make that decision. Essence Warden is a very, very good card. Don't get me wrong, but I think that we would rather have stuff that like push the narrative forward than just gaining us life, right? Crashing Drawbridge is starting to look better and better, just as we go deeper into the sauce with the creatures. 116 cards left. We still need to make some cuts, some significant cuts. You know, Brindleshote feels very good. We're getting like a body on a 1 mana body, a 1 mana 3/3 that gave us an extra body is like very good. What are some things that we have here that could go? I'm starting to think Liliana's Elite, maybe. Because we have like, is Liliana's Elite as good as a drain creature? I think the drain creature is going to be better actually. Because the drain creatures are also things that kind of want to die too. They like drain when they die. So we kind of could do it that way. And plus, drain creatures are haste. They're unblockable when they first do their thing. Maybe Nefarious Imp is where we're really starting to see the cuts, because Nefarious Imp is like rewarding us for something we're doing, but it's not doing the things, right? Which can be kind of a sticky situation. Bloodseeker's great. It's just like, you know, hurting everybody for us operating. How many elves are we at now? I just keep looking for reasons to cut Priest of Titania, and maybe I'm wrong. Priest of Titania is very good, so... Fierce Empath might be one. Fierce Empath is 2 mana to get a card, right? Yeah, Fierce Empath is maybe... It gets some really good creatures. What do you guys think about Fierce Empath? Because it would be really good to get the ETB, LTB drain creatures in here. That, I mean, because that's like a whole built-in win condition, like almost better than like big beaters is creatures that drain everybody, right? And I feel like not having those in here is probably somewhat of a mistake. I mean, we could lean down and say like, what are, like, we have big things like Mockrit Behemoth. I mean, it's part of the thing that I've looked at is that like damage wise, like how do these compare? You have something like Mockrit Behemoth, which is 4 mana. It takes a creature off your board, but that's usually a good thing. And it's on the next turn that it comes into play, it's hitting for potentially 7 if it doesn't get double blocked. Vampire Spawn lands for 2 mana and deals 6 damage and gains us 2 life right away. It can still attack, it can still block. Like, that's part of the thing about the ETB drain creatures that I find so appealing, is just that they're expendable bodies. They kind of get their damage in right away. It's hasty. It's sort of like life linking, and they're cheap. So you know that's one consideration and one reason why this card doesn't often make the cut for me. But I mean, I still think in this deck it's like a 4 mana 7/6 menace is just too good to pass up. You know, we could also look at this one here, right? Whenever it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, put 2+1/+1 counters. So it's like a 3 mana 5/5 scry 2, which is good. But like, would we rather just have a drain creature for 2? Probably. Yeah, let's just, and we don't even have room for the drain creatures right now, so we still need to make those cuts. Liliana's Elite, also, I think we're going to make the cut. Jewel Thief. We can make the cut on this one. We can make the cut on Fierce Empath. Fierce Empath has felt good being able to search up some of our bigger stuff, but none of them generate like a, gobs of card advantage. Well, yeah, because the initiative is 5 mana. Yeah, we're definitely not going to have room for a Lotleth Giant. Like, and even if we did, like, why would we play this when we could just play one that takes life from everybody and heals us for like a third or a quarter of the mana, right? This card is just overpriced. It's just overpriced, even in a deck like this. Yavimaya Elder probably makes the cut. Jewel Thief and Llanowar Visionary could probably go. Because we have other threats that we can play, but they kind of do dual duty. Jewel Thief is mainly kind of like, cool, we get ramp and we get a body we can attack with, but we've got better bodies to attack with. I like Werebear, 1 mana 4/4. It's like, it transitions us perfectly, right? We go 1 mana Werebear, we're tapping it for mana, and then when we don't need mana anymore, it's a 4/4, which is great. Llanowar Visionary might be the one, although it is kind of doing all of the different things we like. Oh boy, 12 cards to cut? How in the hell? Maybe it's cards like Owlbear and Anurid. I mean, they're big. And they draw us cards. Ooh, very, very tough, chat. Very, very tough. Looks like we just got a couple of you left here. We're going to try and push through this last bit. Oh boy. I mean, you could look at like Brindle, Shoat, Crashing Drawbridge might be a little extra. We might need to like test it by adding some lands and then see if there's cards like maybe Mortician Beetle doesn't pull its weight. Like Mortician Beetle without an Edict is bad. Mortician Beetle with an Edict becomes a 5/5. Just like right there. 4 players, sacrifice creatures, it becomes huge. So let's try that. So we are at 30 lands and 12. So we need to add like 5 lands to make this work. And we're going to ignore mana colors of mana when we test. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like that. That should be plenty. 5 lands for 12 cards. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to assume our mana is perfect and everything, which, take it as you will. Like maybe this doesn't work out. Maybe one of these is not a forest, right? And then you're kind of like messed up. But we just need to be able to test to see with all the changes, like, is it good? So let's go with this. Let's say it works. This is exactly what we want. We have Elves of Deep Shadow, 2 lands, some interaction even, some fodder. No card draw really, but it's fine. We'll draw a card. Land, and now you guys get to see what the Rutstein does. Okay, so Elves of Deep Shadow, draw. Okay, now we have the Primal Druid. So now we're gonna get to see, this is so busted. So like, okay, we have like giga mana, right? Giga mana. And we go, do we want the Brindleshow body or the Primal Druid for mana? Because we have Priest of Titania, we're actually going to we're going to get the body off of Brindleshow with Biograph, because we will have tons of mana with Priest of Titania. We have Elf already in play. So we're going to go 1 for Brindleshow, 2 for Priest, 3 for Biograph, sacrificing Brindleshow, making a 3/3 boar token. And here we are sitting on turn 3 with 8, 11 attacking power. You could attack with all 3 of these probably. And then 1 mana to kill the Malcolm that's acting a fool. And then untap and draw. And like, right? 1 mana Primal Druid, 2 mana Demon's Disciple. Sacrifice this, find us a land, put it into play. And look at that. This is like very aggressive. We have all the mana in the world. We can tap all 3 of these, and we can Gruesome Fate for 1, 2, 3, 6. Gruesome Fate for 6. Because we had 1, 2, 3 from this. Yep. Untap. Fierce Empath looking very sick right now. Because now we cast this, and we probably want, see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. So the best thing at 6 mana would be probably a Troll of Khazad-dûm, I think. Yeah, Troll. And then we can tap this for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Troll of Khazad-dûm. This is turn 5. This is what I'm talking about with the velocity. Like, just turn 3 onward, if we have the Rutstein on turn 2, things go berserk. And even if he comes out on turn 3, totally fine, right? But this is a lot of pressure. This is a lot of pressure. And hard to put us behind. If you swept this board, you would kill this, 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 and this. And I would recast... I might not be able to recast the Rutstein. If I draw a land, I guess, then I would. No? Okay. So I guess when I recast this again, I would probably pick up Fierce Empath, or maybe pick up Priest or something and go after it that way. But yeah, this is definitely doing the thing. Let's restart here. We're going to send it again. 1 mana ramp, 3 lands, some payoff stuff. Yeah, this is good. We're going to want something we can sacrifice to this. So we'll draw for turn. Silumgar's Butcher, not great, but not great for now. Land. Okay, we're flooding out. Hopefully we get a good draw off of this next one. That was a good draw. So now we go 1 mana, Crashing Drawbridge, 1 mana, Sakura Tribe Elder. And because we have lots of mana, I actually almost want to sacrifice this to the Reckoner's Bargain. And that puts a bunch of cards in the graveyard for Hooting Mandrills. Yeah, we'll do that. Sacrifice Sakura Tribe Elder. And we're gonna, oh, actually we are not shuffling or drawing. Sorry, not shuffling off of Sakura. We're just drawing 2. Okay, that's end of turn 3. And then here we go. So we have 5 mana that we can tap for. And we'll go 1 mana, let's see, 1 mana Rubble Belt Maverick, because we want to Surveil 2. Those are really good cards. I was hoping I could put them in the graveyard for Hooting Mandrills. White of Precinct 6 is going to be very... Well, White of Precinct 6, we don't have any Edicts, so we'll put it in there. And then, are we going to have a body to sacrifice with this? We are going to sacrifice this to Silumgar's Butcher to kill something. So maybe we just leave this on top and then sack maybe like the Boreal Druid to it. Alternatively, we could put both in, and then we would be able to cast 1 mana Bloodseeker, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we can make a Mandrills. Can we also cast this if we do it that way? So 1, 2, 3, 4, because I want to do both. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe we need to do this early. Silumgar's Butcher just to kill something. Give it haste, attack, attack. Because it's turn 4. People are starting to do scary things. Untap, play our land. And if we were doing that in that order, we probably would have left this on top. Yeah. And then we would draw this for turn. 1 for Bloodseeker. 1, 2, 3 for Vulturous Aven. Sacrificing this to draw 2. Playing a land this turn. 1, 2. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into exile to cast Hooting Mandrills, and then 1 mana to exile this from the graveyard and put +1/+1 on the Vulturous Aven probably, and then give this haste and attack for a bunch. Draw. Although Reaping the Graves actually would have been better than playing the Mandrills there because we had a zillion creatures in our graveyard. Yeah, we misplayed this a little bit, but you can see still turn 6, like quite a bit of power in play. Quite aggressive, drew through a lot of cards. Okay, so here we have one that has no turn 1 mana dork. We don't want to do that. Here we have a mana dork. And again, we're just using the lands. This is a lot of lands, but we're probably just going to be able to cast an early Gurmag Angler and then a Gary. Not a big deal. The Gatecreeper Vine is good. Okay, so now we probably go 1 mana. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're still a little ways away from that. So we'll go 1 mana Gatecreeper, go and get a swamp, just any swamp, and put it into the hand. Play a Haunt of the Dead Marshes Scry. We're gonna put that to the bottom. We're gonna pass with 2 mana open, but nothing to do with it. Draw for turn. Demon's Disciple, excellent draw. So now we'll go, like, maybe we want to go Demon's Disciple into Haunt of the Dead Marshes, like that. I have to pay 2 for that. And then probably pass the turn, and then bring this back at end step. Scry 1 into Defile. We haven't had any other removal, so maybe we do need to have this. Alternatively, we could use Haunt of the Dead Marshes with Gurmag. Gurmag didn't line up pretty, like, all that well here because it's in our opening hand. Gurmag Angler is often pretty foul in your opening hand. So I think we're kind of seeing that here. Reaping the Graves also looking very bad in our opening hand because we just didn't. This is like mid-game card, mid-game card, mid-game card. Kind of interesting. A lot of mid-game card, not a very full graveyard. Velocity was fine because we did have a turn 2 Rutstein, but, like, you know, kind of weird. We probably want to bottom that because we need like stuff to do. Werebear was a good draw. So we go Werebear and then just cast a 4 mana Gary. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Drain for 5. Untap, Swamp. We can just hard cast the Gurmag Angler now. Werebear is small, notably. So this is turn 7, and this didn't feel like a very impactful hand, but that's okay. They happen. This is a good turn. Is it a good turn 3 Rutstein hand? Turn 3, so turn 4 we would untap, play a Dusk Legion Zealot, play a Slum Reaper, and do some stuff. Let's just try it. Let's just see how it works. This is a great pick here. So nothing on 1. On 2, we probably play Sakura Tribe Elder and then sack this to find a land, put it into play tapped, and then we will untap, draw, Rutstein for 3, 1 mana for, we could do Primal Druid. Yeah, Primal Druid because it needs to die, so we need the Slum Reaper. So that's all 4 of our mana there. Untap, land. Now we're going to go 1, 2, 3, Slum Reaper, sack the Primal Druid, put a Swamp into play. Like that. And we'll have 2 mana left over with which to play probably Dusk Legion Zealot, draw a card, and then hold up Defile to defile something. Now this turn, is looking pretty broken, actually. We can go 1. Did we play a land? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have ramped twice, so we did not play a land. 1, 2, 3, like that. 3 mana for the initiative. Go get a swamp here. Play the swamp. 1, 2, 3. Do I have enough to do this? Chain Devil, sacking this. And then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the Hooting Mandrills. Turn 5 with 7, 11, 15 power, not including the Vicious Battle Rager, which will forge up on the next turn. Nobody can punch through this turn. So we're going to untap. We're going to have the initiative trigger. We're going to put it on the... probably on the Vicious Battle Rager. We could put it on the Rutstein so that the Rutstein could attack. That's also an option. Maybe Vicious Battle Rager just sits back on D. Yeah. Although, if the Rutstein dies, we're also fine with that. So maybe we just leave it. And we could put it on something like, yeah, Vicious Battle Rager. Like that. And then we're going to have a 1 mana Feral Prowler, attack with a bunch of stuff, pay 2 for a Go for the Throat at, when somebody tries to go off. Arbor Elf, this is definitely the flip side of the deck, is where you start drawing these instead of like good cards, instead of like action. But now we probably goaded something. We'll probably run the Arbor Elf out. Why would we want the Arbor Elf out right now? We could just save it. Yeah, we'll just hold on to it. Draw for turn. Okay, so at this point, this probably had to block for the initiative. Block. This would die, so we would draw a card, and then we would get the draw off of the initiative as well. Or maybe we need to take the initiative back in combat here. So we go to combat like that. And then we have a 1, 2, 3, 4 mana Avenging Hunter, which is going to send us into the Throne of the Dead 3. And we have Wood Elves, Mortician Beetle, Bayou Groff. Bayou Groff is looking good. Fierce Empath is looking even better, though. This is maybe where the Arbor Elf being in play would have been better, because we could go Fierce Empath, play like a Troll. Would we be able to afford Troll? No, 4 mana, not enough. But we could go get a Gurmag Angler right now. So is Gangler plus better than a Bayou Groff? A Bayou Groff is just better. It's huge too. Mortician Beetle also big, but we don't have any edicts or anything. So we'll just put an 8/7 Bayou Groff into play. And yeah, we don't have any mana for this and this, or we do have, but we don't cast it. Yeah, turn 9, so we're doing things. Mortician Beetle bottom, bottom. So this was very, very effective. This is a great play. The initiative is very strong with Honest Rutstein. Let's try another one. So another turn 3 Rutstein. Priest of Titania could definitely go Busto. We have Fanatical Offering and Feral Prowler, which means that our hand is actually quite a bit larger, and we're going to be able to play out an Avenging Hunter very quickly. So we're going to keep this just for science. Untap, draw. Turn 2, we're going to play out a Priest of Titania. Turn 3, Rutstein. 1, 2, 3 with Rutstein, and then 1 mana for Novice Occultist, probably. Actually, we would probably play out Novice Occultist, yeah. And then draw. Mortician Beetle, going to be great with Final Flourish, Fanatical Offering, and Feral Prowler. So 1 mana Beetle, 1 mana Prowler, 1 mana 1/2 to sack. And we haven't played a land this turn, so we're probably going to draw it. We're going to do Fanatical Offering to sack Occultist to draw 1, 2, 3. We found the land and we got a map. And the map we can sack to Final Flourish as well. So play a land. We've got these 2 up. And we're going to put a +1/+1 counter on this. And then we've got 2 mana to Costly Plunder the Feral Prowler. to draw another 3. 1, 2, 3, like that. And that's pretty good. We saw a lot of cards. We churned a lot. Going into turn 5, we are really well set up. Into turn 5 here, we have our Avenging Hunter, which seems excellent right now. We don't have a creature to sack with the Loathsome Curator. We actually have more sacrifice than we have creatures, which is probably not that likely. Although Priest of Titania could be sacrificed, it's not going busto. We have all the mana for our spells right now. 1, 2, 3, 4 for Loathsome Curator. And plus it feeds the Mortician Beetle, which is good. There might even be a point where we use Altar's Reap on Rutstein and then Rutstein to, bring back a creature of some sort. We could float this mana for 3. Oh, it's a shame we don't have like another elf in play, because if we did, then we could go Loathsome Curator, tap the elf, sacrifice it, and then also cast Avenging Hunter. So let's just pretend there's another elf in play. So we go 1, 2, 3, tapping this, or 1, 2, tapping this for 2. So 4 mana to the Loathsome Curator, sacrifice it, kill something, and then for 4 mana, we cast Avenging Hunter. And we find our land, put it into our hand, and like turn 5, we're sitting on 17 power, actually 18 power. No, because we just played a creature. Yeah, we didn't. We just played the Avenging Hunter. And then untap next turn, we probably like beef up the Rutstein, right? Because now we want it to be an attacker in this case. Turn 6. So we can Final Flourish with our map holding up Vendetta. We can also like Gary right now. I think Gary for 1, 2, 3, 4, holding up 2 is probably fine. So Gary for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Gary for 5. Pay 1 to crack the map. Targeting, I think we just target Gary actually. Unless we want to be able to get Gary back with Rutstein. Yeah, boom, boom. Yeah, we'll just beef up Gary because Gary wants to get in an attack right now. So we flip the top, we get a land, and then we pass the turn. We could have also held up Vendetta and Final Flourish, or Vendetta and Altar's Reap. That's probably the better play, now that I think about it. I forgot that this was 2 kill spells. So say we do have to kill something, and say it wasn't enough, so we have to then go Final Flourish, and we kill it. And then we untap, land. Now we have Altar's Reap and nothing that wants to die, but we could just go 1, 2, Altar's Reap on Rutstein, which seems a little weird. It's a little desperate to draw 2. And then 1, 2, 3. Actually, Reaping the Graves gets back 2 creatures. We could get back nothing super impressive. So why don't we go 1, 2 for that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to cast Rutstein again. Rutstein goes and gets probably something we can sacrifice, right? So we'll do Novice Occultist, or actually it'll be Feral Prowler. And then 1 mana for Feral Prowler. And then we probably get into the red zone here. And then going from there, we probably lost the initiative this turn, so we probably blocked with this, but we wouldn't want to block with it because we want to sack with this. So we probably lost the initiative. So we'll go to our turn, not triggering the initiative. Wirewood Herald looks a little embarrassing right now. Like, what do we want to get with this? We could get a Visionary, which would draw a card. Could get a Visionary. Yeah. So before going to combat, we'll go Visionary or Herald. Is that better than just sacrificing this for 1? So sack this, get a Visionary, draw 2 cards, play the Visionary, draw a 3rd. Whereas we could also just like pay 1 to sacrifice the Feral Prowler and draw 3. Okay, and then Elves of Deep Shadow. So now we've got 1, 2, 3 spells cast, and we go 1, 2, 3, Reaping the Graves, get 1, 2, 3 cards out of our graveyard. And we can go 1, 2, like that. And we could have played Priest there as well. Priest would be the better one. Yeah. We had to play Elves of Deep Shadow to get that. Yeah. So there we go. And then we probably go to combat and we gain the initiative back, which is going to put a 4/1 skeleton token into play. So we'll just make it a Saproling and make it big. A 4-power Saproling when we get the initiative, because we will. Because this is actually huge now, right? This is probably 3 bigger now, right? Because we Village Rites, we Altars Reaped. Yeah, it might be 1 less. 6/6. Yep. So that's kind of cool, knowing that like if we do draw dead, we can always sacrifice our Rutstein, recast it, and it's kind of a big mana play, but we're drawing 2 cards, playing the Rutstein, getting a card back, so it's kind of its own creature that we're happy to sacrifice. So like some decks are that way, where they either produce enough value or they don't, like their cost is low enough that when you play them, they're fine to be plundered away. Like Honest Rutstein is actually fine to be plundered away when you've got lots of mana. Like untap this next turn. We probably have to block with a ton of stuff to keep the initiative here. And what I would probably do is block with like, this is a very expensive attack if somebody does, but say they do, we block with this, it dies and we draw a card. We block with this, it dies and we draw a card. We block with this, we go and find a Visionary. And we probably just want the Elvish Visionary in this case. We don't care that it's bigger. Get this. And then, I don't know, we probably block with this to kill a big thing. And let's say we block with Rutstein as well, maybe? 1, 2, 3. We probably don't need to. We'll block with Elves of Deep Shadow. So say we did that to preserve the initiative. And then we go view top X and we go top 10 because we're at the Throne of the Dead 3. And we flip over only 2 creatures. That is wild in a 65 creature deck. Abyssal Gatekeeper or Boreal Druid. Abyssal Gatekeeper, I guess. That's probably one of the worst creatures you can put into play. And then draw for turn. Okay, so you can see how this is like, yeah, we're turn 9. We're grinding well, though. We killed things, we drew cards, we blocked. You know, we're doing the initiative thing. And now we just have this crazy turn where we go like Elvish Visionary, draw a card. You know, Brindle Shoat into play. Actually, probably want to play our draw spells first. 1, 2, 3, 4 for Owlbear, draw a card. 1 mana for Priest of Titania, I think. How many creatures? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 creatures in the graveyard, so this is reduced by 5, so it's 2 mana. So we go 1, 2, Writhing Necromass, right? So like Priest of Titania could have been a... Priest of Titania should have been a Brindle Shoat. Yeah. And this is just more damage over the course of the game. Then we can attack, and then we have Ghastly Demise, which is huge because of all this stuff. And then probably gain the initiative on the upkeep. Grab that, draw a card. And yeah, just 1 mana Kel'Joran dead. Like at this point, I would almost K-dead on, like if none of this stuff had died, I imagine some of this stuff had died. Because if it did, if there's anything meaningful in the graveyard, I would K-dead Honest Rutstein, replay Honest Rutstein, grab that card and recast it. But in this case, we're going to K-dead the Brindle Shoat, and we're going to get the Boar token. Like that. And then, yeah, go from there. So that's a turn 10. Turn 10, probably a good start. If this is a forest, if we assume this is a forest, this is actually pretty good. It's a little vulnerable, but we're gonna go for it. Okay, well the Priest of Titania made it really gross. So let's just say if it's the Arbor Elf, that actually means if this is a forest, we cannot cast Rutstein, which I didn't think about. But it's a lot of mana, so let's say it's a forest, and maybe we draw our thing. 1, 2 for Priest of Titania. Uh-oh. The wheels are falling off. The 1-lander wasn't good. So 1 mana for this. Untap this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Visionary, draw swamp. Uh-oh. Next turn. Okay, well, there's that. We have enough to cast the Anurid, which is actually, this is probably the only time you wouldn't sack a land with this to draw a card. Yep. Okay, so this one had mana troubles, but we could play it through. Maybe we don't need to draw a card because we have Corrupted Conviction, and now we have like a ton of mana in place. So turn 5, we're gonna go 1, 2, 3, or probably 1, 2, 3. Rutstein, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 mana. We are playing catch up now, and we only have 1 black mana. So we probably want to... What would we want to play? Corrupted Conviction is kind of the play, but that doesn't use a lot of our other mana, unfortunately. Tap this to tap that. Probably need the Corrupted Conviction on this Llanowar Visionary. Okay, yeah, so we're screwed. This is a bad hand. Keep the 1 land or get punished. Okay, this is sweet. Very sweet. Draw for our opener. Say this is a forest. We're assuming. We're making assumptions. But Elves of Deep Shadow. Untap. Here, I think we can go 1 for Utopia Sprawl onto our swamp. Tap this for 2, 3. And then play Rutstein. This is going to be super explosive. Yeah, super explosive. 1, 2, 3, 4 mana. So we'll go 1, play... How do we make a thing die this turn, though? 4 mana. Oh, we need to play the Battle Rager. So 1... 2, 3. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Vicious Battle Rager. Find whatever land we needed to function this turn. Get it. Play it. 1, 2 left over. So we'll probably go 1 for Guildsworn Prowler and 1. Say this is a green for that. We'll go Rubble Belt Maverick. Land is more important than Gruesome Fate. Gruesome Fate's good, but I don't think it's the right time for the card. Yeah, it's not the right time for it. So we're going to actually... Oh, we didn't mean to do that. I'm going to look at the bottom here. Find that Gruesome Fate. Oh, it's Surveil. It's putting it away forever. I don't think we can do that. So, because we need that. We need that card. It's very good. So draw the land... The land is helpful because we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Loathsome Curator, sacrificing the Guildsworn Prowler, drawing the card off the Prowler, killing something, paying 1 for the Bone Picker, and 1 for the Defile to kill another thing. And now we are... Oh, Dusk Legion Zealot. 1 mana, Dusk Legion Zealot. Draw, swamp. We can pretty much just cast Gruesome Fate here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, I haven't been calculating this in. I guess this would have gone on here. Yeah. Echoing Decay. Okay, so you're probably getting a feel for it by now. If y'all are watching that. About a half hour of playtesting there. So we're at 117 cards. We have not finished this deck. I think the question is, like, the big question is, first, how do we get to 100, right? Because there's a lot of things, like, asking for our attention. Maybe these 4 mana cards that draw a card with a good body on them aren't good enough. That could totally be the case. The fact that this, doesn't have trample is a bit troublesome. I think we can cut that one, especially since we're going down on lands. I really like the Loathsome Curator as a way to destroy a creature while basically producing a big body that has evasion. And I think perhaps even better than Silumgar's Scavenger, because Silumgar's Scavenger is a smaller body, and it does not have evasion. So it's possible that that one wants to go. Although it's even possible that Owlbear, it has evasion, it draws us a card, but yeah, I mean it's still a 4/4 trample. It draws us a card. That's pretty good. But they're on the expensive side, so that's kind of one thing I'm thinking about. Fierce Empath might be taking the axe, might be taking the L here, because it's 2 mana, draw a specific kind of card, but it's like not always exactly the card you wanted. You can get Gurmag Angler, which is good. You can get Troll of Khazad-dûm, which is good, but let's just put that one away for now. I think White of Precinct 6 is going to be great with all these Edict creatures. Sylvan Ranger, very confident on those ones being good. Crashing Drawbridge is busted when we have cards that make mana, right? And I haven't seen this play out yet, but like Crashing Drawbridge and play like a Priest of Titania, play like a Werebear, play your Elvish Visionary. It makes them all free. It makes them all, play for 1 mana, tap them for 1 mana. Visionary is another card that we could cut too. Because it's just like 2 mana, right? It's ramping us. It's doing all the different things, but it's still 3 mana, or it's 2 mana, right? Which maybe isn't that big of a deal, but it seems like we want to like run our stuff out. I think it does a lot of things though. Wirewood Herald is definitely looking like a card that we could potentially cut, which is weird, but like, if the Wirewood Herald is in the mid of the late game, what are we getting with it? What are we getting with it that we're excited about? Like Yava, it's not even an elf. There's just like not a lot of elves on the upper end of the curve that we're excited about playing late game. In the early game, if we play it, sacrifice it, search for an elf, and we get ourselves Priest of Titania, we also like just put ourselves down on elves, right? So it's not as good. So Wirewood Herald is just like kind of fine. The other cards I'm looking at too are maybe this Rubble Belt Maverick being a little too... No, it's the same. It's the same. It's easy to get your head wrapped around this and being like, oh, like why would we play this when we have cards like Wary Thespian? That's like, but this is still filtering the mana. It's still a thing that we're happy to like let go, and it gives us value from the graveyard. Yeah, Erosium. This card has a lot of really awesome stuff in it. It's a powerful deck. Lot of options, and I haven't even organized all the cards yet. Like into, like, do I have this one in draw? I do. This one is in draw. It does seem like it's pretty hard to like commit to a thing here in a lot of ways, because you're getting like attention split in so many different directions. Like Wary Thespian isn't draw, but it is like filtering. Sylvan Ranger isn't draw, kind of is. Like Primal Druid is ramp. I guess this is draw. It is putting a card in your hand. Novice Occultist, draw. Guildsworn Prowler, draw. Just want to make sure I have all these organized properly into the right places. Brindleshote might be one of those things where it's just putting power onto the battlefield and being an extra body, but it just seems like this is exactly where you want to be. Basilica Screecher is a good card that gains us quite a bit of life. But it isn't directly working with any of our other strategies. Which is interesting, but still 115 cards. So we have to cut 15 cards from this. Actually, it's not that many because we have lands, right? We would actually be at 30 total land sources. So let's cut that down a little bit just so that we don't freak ourselves out. Yeah, so we have to cut 10 cards. So Wirewood Herald is starting to look like the card that needs to go. If there was like a big expensive payoff elf, like MV equals greater than equal to 5 type elf that we like. Oh, that's less than. Whoops. less than or equal to 5. Elf, that we liked, maybe we would play that. Entourage of Trust definitely would be something I would look for, but I don't think it's right for the deck. There's like Wirewood Guardian, which is just, like a 6/6, but I don't think that's premium to look for. Wormskin Forger, 7 mana 2/2. Distribute 3 +1/+1 counters among any number of things. That's terrible. Yeah. Thin-Clade Fugitives is a good card. This is a very strong beater. 5 mana, 7/4, can't be blocked by little stuff. It comes back, and that is fodder, right? Thin-Clade Fugitives is a good attacker. I don't know, though. I don't know if all that's worth, like, bending the deck around. It's not like that was, like, on the top of our list. We're looking to put, like, drain creatures in here, and we can't fit that. We have 8 Edicts, 15 pieces of removal, which is almost certainly where the cuts have to come from. So I think it's going to be Spinning Darkness, because I'm just noticing that, like, we're having a hard time having enough black things in the yard, because a lot of our fodder is green. So let's take that one out, even though it's a very good card. Tragic Slip is probably going to be very good. Vendetta is great. Doomblade could probably go. Echoing Decay is fine. Any tribal instance. Eyeblight Ending would be findable with Wirewood Herald, but I think Wirewood Herald's just not going to make the cut. Like, we're just not the kind of deck that really cares to do that. Nameless Inversion is also usually kills most things. 2 mana, -3/-3, but it's also a way to buff something. But that's pretty much it. There's other, like, yeah, that's pretty much it. So down to 8 cards to cut. Reaping the Graves did feel good as a mid-game card, right? Did feel good that way. And we don't really have any other graveyard recursion in the deck. We totally want to play, like, probably want to play Witch's Cottage and Mortuary Mire in this deck. We're also, let's see, what else do we want here? God, 8 cards. How do we cut 8 cards? Yeah, Wirewood Herald's got to go. We probably need to cut some amount of ramp, like Visionary. Although Visionary is, it does all the different things, but it's 2 mana. And it's crazy because there's cards like Rot Shambler that we would love to get in here too, although the Rot Shambler and the Mortician Beetle are sort of predicated on these Edicts, which we have 8 of, right? Like, 8 of them is a lot. So, like, that's more than most decks. We're playing all of the mass Edicts that tend to see play. Disfigure, Ghastly Demise, 13 pieces of removal, 8 Edicts. That's 21. That's a lot. Gruesome Fate is good, very good. Bloodseeker is great. Now we need to make cuts of stuff where everything is good. 6 cards left. Crashing Drawbridge could be the one, since it's like, it's just another effect, and it's powerful with getting our threats attacking really quickly. And it is only 1 mana. It's ungated on colors. If we aren't pushing a ton of damage, we could sacrifice it. Writhing Necromass might be one that's just suspect. Although I think Necromass is probably, most cases, quite good. Necromass is interesting too, because Necromass is probably like a 2 mana 5/5. God, it's crazy. If Necromass is bad in this deck, it is bad everywhere. Like, this is a terrible card if it doesn't see play here. Like, would we rather play Liliana's Elite? Liliana's Elite grows based on the number of creatures we have, and we can play it early. And it'll grow over time. Writhing Necromass sometimes says, you can't even play me if you don't have creatures. And I think that's a really good reason to not play it. It's just going to be inconsistent. even though it's, you know, a nice chonky 5/5. Um, there's other cards like Rubble Belt Maverick, you know, that and like Haunt of the Dead Marshes that are just Scry 1 and Surveil 2 that could just be ETB drain creatures, right? Let's try this. Let's try it. Although we're not even at 100, you know, 100 cards yet. Bone Picker is just a creature. Keljoran Dead, like a drain creature is going to be better than K-Dead, I think. If K-Dead would have to punch 3 times unblocked to get the same amount of damage that a drain creature would put into play, and it itself is not something we love to sacrifice, whereas the other ones give us a body that we can sacrifice. So we can get rid of that one, which is so sad because K-Dead is such a cool card. I think that Mortician Beetle is just going to get really, really big. And I think that Crashing Drawbridge better as a ETB drain creature? Like more fodder on bodies that does damage. It's more aggressive, whereas this is going to turn on some aggressive turns with our Edict creatures, but otherwise doesn't. I mean, it synergizes with our ramp. Definitely synergizes with the ramp. It means we can run all of our ramp out at the same time pretty quickly on turn 4. I don't know if that's good enough. I think Crashing Drawbridge probably doesn't make the cut. And then last things to cut would be potentially like Wary Thespian is good, but again, this isn't drawing us a card. It is a nice body, but it's also like kind of funny because it's a body that says it wants to die, but it's a 3/1, which means like would Wary Thespian be better as a drain creature? Probably. Okay, 100 cards. Let's see how that feels. Let's play test this now. No lands, wild growth, and actually let's get our lands in order here. So we're not going to want to play a lot of tap lands. We're going to want. Damn, this is a deck that could really use an Astrolabe as well. To be quite honest. So like 13 snow-covered forests. And that's, yeah, something like that. I think we're probably going to want more tap lands. How many humans are there? 6 humans. How many druids? 10. So Path of Ancestry. Oh, no, Warlock. Warlock is what we are. Humans, 6 humans. So is Path of Ancestry worth? Maybe not. We're going to want more dual lands than what we're showing here, probably. Just a couple more, because we need our good mana, which means that we're going to have less turn 2 Rutsteins. But turn 3 Rutstein is still good. Yep, let's just try this. We could put path in. So type land O tapped. Let's see what options we have, because we could also play, we're a low land count deck, so like Golgari Rot Farm is good. Darkmoss Bridge being an artifact land. Artifact land could be useful, but I don't think we want it to be a duel. Rot Farm definitely wants to be here, I think. We could put in... What gates would we care about? Heap Gate needs another gate or a changeling creature to turn on treasures, which we don't have. Colony Garden is good. We definitely like Colony Garden. We'll play that even though it's tapped. Mortuary Mire, yes. Mortuary Mire might make the cut where Witch's Cottage doesn't. What are we actually bringing back, though? The stuff that's dying is usually not so premium that we'll have to come back to that. We could play... I don't know that we need Tranquil Thicket. What am I missing? We're missing Path of Ancestry. The desert that deals a damage to an opponent. Probably not. Witch's Cottage is like same thing as Mortuary Mire here. This tends to be the deck where you kind of want something like this, but because we have so many creatures in the graveyard. But if we're just putting like a Dusk Legion Zealot on top, that's not good because we're basically like, it's not very good. Just rather draw deeper. Okay, that's good. And then we're gonna cut some lands here. So, okay, so just like that, and then maybe down a Colony Garden, making a body. How important is that? That might not be good enough, actually. We're gonna cut that for now. Golgari Rot Farm is helpful, even though it would mess up if we had like a land Golgari Rot Farm. We won't be able to cast Rutstein on turn 2, but we will hit all of our land drops, and I think that's a good place to be. This is terrible. We have friggin' so many lands. This is tragic. Generous Ent being a if this had one land in it, it would be very good, but nope. This one here on 5 is great. So the question is, do we keep Chain Devil? Probably. So we could cut this. We're not going to be able to play a turn 2 Rutstein. We're looking at turn 3 Rutstein, but we're going to have to play Mire, Mystic. Yeah, it's not great. It's slow, right? Mire, Mystic. If it's slow, maybe we want to keep this. Mire, Mystic, Vine, and this one says land. Basic land card. I think Extracted Confession is the worst of these, probably. Even though being slow, we might wish that we had it. But we'll try this. Draw for turn. Troll. Okay. It's a slow land in this case. Okay. So now what we're going to do... Oh, this doesn't cycle for... Oh, that would be a very slow hand if we did it that way. But maybe that's the way we need to do it here. Type Swamp. And we'll get a Woodland Chasm. Play that. Yeah, I mean, this is a little disappointing because we're kind of slow. This is going to be a turn 4 Rutstein, but we will actually go off with the Priest of Titania. So we can go 1 Elvish Mystic, tap this, Rutstein, yeah, and then turn 5 comes around, which is slow. If we were dirtling like this, it would be not good. But we can go Gatecreeper, Vine. We want to find a swamp. Play the swamp. You can see the Gatecreeper Vine's quite nice there, being able to just play it out. And now we have interaction, and we have quite a bit of mana. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And 3 black. So what we can do, we only have one thing that we want to sacrifice, and it'll probably be to the Fanatical Offering, although we can sacrifice Rutstein to the nasty end to get back the Troll, which is actually pretty good. But we have a lot of stuff to do with our mana. So we probably want to go 1, 2, 3, cast Chain Devil, sacking the Gatecreeper Vine, because maybe we need to kill something. Although if we did, we would probably do it with Disfigure, right? And actually it's like that. Yeah, so we'll tap 1 black to Corrupted Conviction, the Gatecreeper Vine. 1, 2, see what our options are. That was good. 1 mana Werebear. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 1, 2, 3 for Chain Devil. Let's sacrifice the... This is a bit tough. We could sacrifice the Werebear and get it back later as a 4/4. but it depends on whether developing is more important. I think in this case, actually, we sack the Chain Devil. This is one of the unusual cases, and then we disfigure. Because we're playing a slower game, we're on turn 5. So now we'll untap, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana. So now we can actually just play a pretty hard attrition game here. 2 to sacrifice, and actually we'd probably tap this for 1, 2, 3 green, paying black, and then black to do it again, like that. And this is going to become a 4/4, and then we're going to attack. So we're just attritioning the board because we have nothing else to do at this time. And then we have 2 mana, and at this point I kind of want to sack Rutstein to the nasty end because I'll draw 3 cards. It'd really get this train rolling. But if we don't have Rutstein in play, then things are a little slower. Now let's do it. Let's see how this works. Sack Rutstein here, draw 1, 2, 3. Reaping the Graves is good. We'll untap. No lands. Snow-covered forest for 1. Actually, we do Llanowar Elves because it's free with Titania. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cast Rutstein. 1, 2, 3 mana left. We could go 1, 2, 3. Reaping the Graves. We've got 1, 2, 3 to return, so we could go 1, 2, 3. It's pretty strong. And Rutstein's going to bring something back as well, so we'll get Troll back. And actually, we could have gotten Gatecreeper Vine. Oh, that's actually much more big brain, isn't it? So if these are all the creatures we have here, yeah, actually, this is the way to go. So you go, without doing this, we go untap these 3. We get the Rutstein comes in, gets the Gatecreeper, pays 1 for the Gatecreeper, goes and gets a Swamp, and then you put that into play. That's one more Storm for Reaping the Graves, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we have to play this, play the Reaping the Graves, and we're gonna get all of these back, like that, and then. Now we have just gazillion 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 mana on turn 8. And you can see we could just like boom, boom, boom. We could do all of these this turn, which would definitely be strong. And nobody would basically be doing anything if we did that. So let's just 1, 2, 3 for Chain Devil, sacking this. 1, 2, 1, 1, 2. So how much does that cost? 3 plus 2 plus 2, so 7. So we probably tap the Priest of Titania, and then boom, and boom, both of these there. So there's kind of an interesting grindy like Edict game plan here that's kind of oppressive. I mean, we just used like 6 Edicts in a row, and then we have enough mana to do a Troll of Khazad-dûm into a Golgari Rot Farm, picking that up. Replay. The Priest of Titania is insane. This is very strong. Very, very strong. We can go 1 for this, probably immediately sacrifice it for Vicious Offering. Or actually the way to do it is to tap another thing so that it's basically free. So what do we do there? We tap 1 for the forest. No, 1 swamp and this to cast Fanatical Offering, sacrificing the one that's tapped. And then we're going to draw 2. 1, 2, make a map. Land. Did we already play a land? We did. We did. Tap 1 for Feral Prowler. Pay 1, 2. Sack the Feral Prowler to draw 3. 1, 2, 3. Run out the... We want enough mana to do... actually, we can go Boreal Druid. 1, 2, 3, 4. Tap that for 4, which is more than we can use, but we'll go Priest of Haunted Edge, and then we'll hold up our Final Flourish to kill something. And we could even sack the Rutstein, actually. We would sack the Rutstein, because now we can play the Rutstein and get back, like, anything, almost. Because we have tons of mana, right? So yeah, this is giving us a sense of kind of what the deck does here. I think we were going to wrap things up here just so that we don't stretch too long into the future here with all of our cards. But let me clean this up really quick so that we can see it. All these sideboard cards need to go to considering, basically, because they're jamming this up so that we can't see a lot of the stuff. But let me see if I can capture my thoughts here while I move these things in here. Essentially, what I'm showing you today is not the way to build Honest Rutstein. It is a way to build Honest Rutstein. Clearly, there are other routes we could take as well. Like, we could potentially increase the land count, rely less on ramp, take some of our ramp stuff out so that we're mostly focused on like the 1 mana ramp, and then put in like all the drain creatures and get even more aggressive and put in like maybe more of the payoffs for things dying because our edicts are so good. I think that's also like a reasonable, thing to go in. It's possible that like, your Primal Druid, Sakura Tribe Elder, Viridian Emissary, Wood Elf stuff is not really where we want to be, whereas like Werebear at least is a big creature. That's possible. Like maybe the big mana stuff, we just want to go down on that, because even in that last game we had like 17, 18 mana probably, and nothing to do with it. That was turn 10 and we were grinding at that point. The big mana does create a sink for Honest Rutstein, where if you have an ability to sacrifice him, you can replay, like sacrifice him to an effect, replay him, get a card back, and then play that card again as a way to just generate more card advantage. But that, so that's an option. Cards like, Rot Shambler are starting to look pretty sweet in the deck as well. Just again, ways to get even more aggressive here. And maybe that's where this is just overboard. This is a lot of ramp. The high velocity potential means the card draw is likely really good, feeding the plunder. There's definitely a stompy build versus a stormy build. Yeah, and even the storm isn't really like ending the game. It's just like high velocity, right? And where you have more mana. And with the big mana, you probably want more big plays, like more big creatures. But not necessarily. Like having more mana might just mean casting more spells. And then like when I've play tested this, I had cards like Generous Stray in there too. So like one thing I'm noticing playtesting it in front of everybody right now that I didn't see when I was doing this before, that's different, is that like I had all of the ETB draw creatures in, and that felt ridiculous. It felt just like you never run out, but it also meant that we didn't have like a lot of ways to win. It didn't have a ton of win conditions. It was just like cheesing out all these cards super, super fast. Yeah, so... and of course, as is tradition, many of the cards that were in the opening presentation did not make the final cut. And some of the ones that weren't in the presentation may actually make their cut in the future. Especially if we're doing like this ETB drain thing. I think that's a really, really good thing to be doing. It makes me feel better about playing like Vendetta and Snuff Out and all that. We're also like, there's a lot of interaction in this deck I'm noticing too. So that's something that we could consider, reducing down on a little bit. Seeker Squire, we didn't end up playing Seeker Squire, Satyr Wayfinder, those sorts of cards. They just didn't really make the exploring just didn't seem good enough. And exploring when you have a low land count is pretty bad. So there's that. Liliana's Elite. So I'm looking to cut all the cards out of the sideboard that are just never going to see play probably. Like even Phyrexian Rager, like a 3 mana. There's a new 3 mana 3/1, I think, that does that could be good. You go like Sky Scanner even, there are definitely like builds of this where you can go like even deeper into draw spells. I think my original build even had like 30 some draw spells in it because it was just so many of these like creatures that did that as well. Creatures that went and got you a card. That's totally reasonable as well. Sorrel's Packmate is in there, you know. Scavenger kind of does that. Wickerbow Elder also is. There's actually like a pretty nice build where you can build into like naturalize effects here as well. Um, there's definitely like a go big. There's even like mob and overwhelming remorse. The Scavenger still looks pretty good. I found that like evasive, hasty creatures, a flying haste creature, can hit really hard in a deck like this. And it's pretty easy to see a turn where you go like Silumgar Scavenger into, you know, like a couple sacrifice effects, and then you just hit somebody for quite a bit, which is cool. If I built the deck like for myself, I might actually put Silverglade Elemental in here just because it is a big body that's also ramping you. And it does come into play untapped, which is sweet. Silverback Shaman probably never goes in. Street Wraith, not clear to me yet. Unmake the Grave, some of these other ones that like require Convoke aren't that good. Annoyed Altasaur, kind of happy to have that gone. I would rather play Phyrexian Gargantua, I think, if I was playing, you know, paying that mana cost, just because it is just 2 cards. Finclade Fugitives looks like the best thing to tutor off of a Wirewood Herald if you want to play the Elves version of it, where you have a lot of, like, where you lean a little harder into the Elf thing, because Finclade Fugitives is just a lot of value. You know, you're playing this creature that's hard to block. It doesn't get blocked by TPI. It doesn't get blocked by Abdel, except Abdel itself. And then when it does, then you get to punch them again with the Encore. It's a good thing to tutor up there. But again, like there's a lot of different directions we're being pulled. I would probably play Elvish Aberration as well if I were going down into that route. Silverglade Elemental, Street Wraith. Street Wraith does kind of mean that you're starting with like an extra card in hand, like an 8th card in hand, which is good. Liliana's Elite. It's probably good. Desperate Farmer is not going to be good enough. Desperate Farmer is just a 2-mana 4/3 lifelink, which is not going to do it. Masked Vandal is good. Feed the Swarm is good. Okay, so what we kind of landed on here is a little bit mixed. We have 49 creatures in the deck, which is a ton. We still have 20 draw spells, which is a lot. But keep in mind that that many of these are like, you know, draw 1, draw 2s, draw 3s together, right? There are other, I think, let's see, draw 2, sacrifice. And we're not even playing like Night's Whisper or anything like that because we wanted them to be on bodies. We want them to be on creatures. This is going to give us all the 2 life kind of cards. So yeah, we won't look into that. Yeah, so 49 creatures. We're still highly interactive, like 13 removal spells with 8 edicts. You know, really focusing on the fact that the edicts get discounted is definitely seems strong. And maybe there's even like a controlling build of this where you're focusing on edicts as a way to like keep the board clear. And then I'm not sure what you transition into, just like you probably still want the core draw thing. You know, big question is going to be this ramp package here, you know, and like if we looked at this drain creatures, you know, maybe like the ones we really want would be like Rot Shambler is not going to get big enough. I think that's my main concern here. Like it has to be in play for probably a couple of turns before this can actually punch people because it's only our creatures when our creatures die. Whereas like, you know, you've got your Mortician Beetle, which, where's Mortician Beetle? Did we not? Is Mortician Beetle, where is it? Oh, there it is. Whereas like Mortician Beetle 1 Edict, and this thing's already a 5/5, which is really good. Other things you can do with Honest Rutstein too, like you could kind of ignore the creature spell discount thing and, you know, just focus on like a card that gives you a card back from the grave. But I think that it already kind of does that. And the more broken, the thing that's actually busted about Honest Rutstein isn't that it's a 3-mana 3/3 that gives you a creature back. The thing that's busted is that it discounts all of your creatures. It's a massive mana dork, like very powerful effect that we get here in the command zone. I think like Sakura Tribe Elder could probably, like I guess the Primal Druid and the Priest of Type, the Primal Druid type cards need something else to make them work, whereas Sakura Tribe Elder doesn't. But it's also a ramp card purely for the sake of ramp in a deck that otherwise it does want to get more mana, but it's more that it's like getting bodies that it can do stuff with. So that's one that could go probably. I do like the Werebear. I do like that a lot. I'm excited about the Loathsome Curator. The Faceless Butcher is definitely going to be good in here too. The Priest of the Haunted Edge is great. That gets to play a lot of really, really unique cards. And, you know, you're playing like a zillion different creature types. How many is it in total here? Let me see if I can count. 1, 2, 3. Wow. We're playing almost 40 different creature types. That's crazy. No, that can't be true. Wait. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's almost 40 creature types because there's ones that have multiple creature types on it. That's wild. 49 creatures and 40 creature types, which is, of course, why we call this the Freak Show Zoo deck, because it really is just kind of like right out of Nightmare Alley. Um, yeah, so pretty interesting deck. I think I'm probably going to build this one in paper and start doing some more testing with it. This one is definitely like pulling on the strings of my brain and making me think a lot. It's going to be, you know, interesting to see, you know, cards like the, you know, the interaction between the Gate Creeper Vine type cards, like Sylvan Ranger, Gate Creeper Vine. You know, being able to cut lands for that is definitely nice. We might actually have too many lands still. That's possible. But, you know, we've got lots of stuff to do with our mana. And so, yeah, I think that's a good place to leave things off for now. Okay, whew, what a zinger that one was. I gotta get some water, replenish my liquids before we do our little sign off here. We were gonna do a set review today, but we don't have all the cards yet, and they're not on Scryfall, so it's a little hard to do that. First day we get a set review though. Or first day that we get access to all the cards on Scryfall. So particularly when Scryfall has this thing, let's see, actually we gotta go to pull this up here, and there we go. When we get Scryfall to the point where it's got this and it says the whole preview, then we're going to want to go through it and look at everything and talk about the new set. But as it is currently, it is not all out there. I think it might be close, but there's cards in here that I've seen posted elsewhere that that aren't here yet. This number 364 is a little misleading because I think it includes all the different like versions of cards too, potentially. Like if we did rarity common right now, oops. We need rarity oh, nope, is it not? It's not liking it. Rarity common. So if you do rarity common, yeah, there's only like 96. There's probably more than that in the whole set. So anywho, this will probably be coming up soon. I think we're likely to get our Outlaws of Thunder Junction, or just this set should be spoiled here pretty soon, and we'll go and look at all the new cards for them at that time. But yeah, that's going to be it for tonight, folks. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit about Honest Rutstein, this new commander. Definitely a new thing that we get in Golgari to do that looks great for you know, aggressive or reactive mid-range, or I guess proactive or passive mid-range decks. Allows us to play a lot of cards that we don't usually see, like the Bayou Groff and the Brindle Shoat, the Priest of the Haunted Edge. You know, being able to go even deeper into Edicts, the Loathsome Curator, the Mockrat Behemoth, Rottide Gargantua. All these cards being like very, very interesting in this context. This discounting of creatures is very unique, and I definitely recommend that you go check it out. And of course, in the comments below, do let me know how it goes for you if you end up building this deck. You can also join the Discord to participate in the conversation there. And a great way to participate in the conversation even deeper is to join the supporters only section of the Discord through Patreon. You can join it at patreon.com/common connoisseurs, where for less than $2, $2 a month, it's like half the cost of a cup of coffee, you can support the channel, but also gain entry into the conversation happening on Discord that is exclusive to the people who are supporting it financially. That's also a great place to see where updates to these sorts of decks come from. I'll share all my thoughts, kind of updates on the decks on Discord. I'll tag everybody and make sure they know when there's an update to a deck. You can always go in there and follow all the threads that you want to, and the threads all correspond to different decks with lists. You could post your own deck list in there as well too. It's a great way to join the conversation and support me and the channel. And of course, but the free thing is, on your way out, if you did enjoy this video today, if you enjoyed the conversation and all the thoughts on Honest Rutstein, the different things we can do make sure to leave a like on your way out. And once the video ends, if you've got a moment, you can leave a little comment for the algorithm and let everybody know what you'd like to tell them. But with that, Connoisseurs of Fine Common Cardboard, thank you so much for being here today. It was great chatting with you, sharing with this new Golgari commander. So wherever you are in the multiverse, we'll catch you on the battlefield. Peace out, friends. See ya.